Those of you just joining us, I'd like to welcome you to the school board business meeting at the Joe N. Idolette Jr. TEC. Today is Monday, August 26, 2024, and I'd like to call this meeting to order. The time is 6 p.m. I ask that out of respect to everyone, please at this time check all your electronic devices and make sure they're on silent. Also, if you have any materials you wish to share with any board member, please give those to our administrative assistant, Ms. Morey. She's sitting over there. At this time, I'd like to introduce and have them come forward, the Sebastian River High School Navy Junior ROTC, under the direction of Commander Retired Peter Bissonette, United States Navy, and Master Sergeant Retired Michael Hussey, United States Marine Corps, for the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Order. Colors. March. Colors. And salute. Ready. 2. Pose. Colors. March. Oh, word. March.
You know, school's back in session when you get that. That's wonderful. All right, at this time, board members, are there any items that you wish to move from consent to action?
I'd like to add one item to the action items.
To action or to discussion?
To action.
We're going to add an action item, okay?
Okay, action item is to present for amendment to policy 2130 regarding the achievement gap oversight, to present it for a 30-day public comment, and then to be placed on the agenda for the October business meeting.
Okay, so you're looking at an addendum, what'd you say?
An amendment
Amendment?
to policy
I said
2130
addendum. Okay,
for public comment.
okay. Could I get a second for that?
I'll second.
Okay.
It doesn't need a second, by the way,
Yes.
but I'll second anyway.
It does on here. Okay. So that's a new item for action. Anything else? Dr. Jones?
Yes, action item C, which reads approval to set public hearing date for the adoption of the revisions to school board policies 165.1, 164, 165, and 169. Rewrites were sent to us with quite a few changes and green lines. Haven't had a chance to discuss as a board, not one policy, but 4. Several changes in wording, just a motion to postpone until September 9th workshop where we can discuss all of the changes as a board as they were sent to us.
Okay. It's Dr. Jones for postponement of item 9C. Is there a second on that? I'll second for discussion.
And Madam Chair,
Mm-hmm.
if we could move 9A, which is the CWA contract, and 9B, the IRCE contract, immediately following the superintendent's report, I would greatly appreciate it, as we annually or traditionally do.
Okay, so I will make that motion for you on behalf of the board. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Anything else, board members? Dr. Posca, you feeling left out? You wanna- no? You good? Okay. All right, so we have a new action item, policy 2130, for an amendment by Mr. McDonald. We have a postponement by Dr. Jones of 9C. We have 9A and 9B for CWA and IRCEA to be moved up, which means that we would have to vote on those items first. All right. So can I get a motion to accept the adoption of the orders of the day as amended?
So moved?
Okay.
Second.
Mr. McDonald? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Passes 5-0. Thank you. Y'all are challenging me right off the bat. Okay. Superintendent's report. Dr. Moore?
Thank you, Madam Chair. There is this goes always back to June. Where is the one from the summer? One minute, please. So not to belabor the time that we're all here, so Madam Chair, if we can maybe just do 9A and 9B, then we'll come back to the presentation.
Absolutely. All right, so action agenda item 9A was moved to the beginning of the program. So action item 9A is the approval of the 2025-2027 collective bargaining agreement between the school board and the Communication Workers of America. They reached an agreement on a 2-year contract. Any discussion by board members?
Madam Chair, I'd like to present the item. if I could.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This item, as you know, when we had a strategy session regarding the initiation of going through the process for contracts, we were able to meet with both our CWA representatives as well as IRCEA, and we were able to come to terms for what I believe are very, very impactful contracts that we are initiating today. For CWA, which is the first contract, an overall compensation across the board of an additional 3%. We're very proud for that. This contract also improves the language around evaluations. It improves language around discipline procedures. It includes bereavement leave for our employees, which we're very proud of. It provides additional language around witness and/or jury duty leave, clarifies language with holidays, clarifies language around paid breaks and when they would be the most appropriate time to take them. As well as providing additional compensation and hourly rate for our summertime bus drivers. Want to acknowledge the entire team, the negotiation team for CWA, which is Ms. Christofoli and Mr. Green and Dr. Soot and Dr. Long, for hours of commitment. I think in total there were over, Beth, take it away. How many recommendations did we, how many language changes did we have? 57 language changes, which really clarified roles, expectations, and how we engage. So very, very thankful for that. So that is the IRCEA contract. I mean CWA.
Sir. Okay, could I get a motion to accept the contract for the collective bargaining agreement between the school board and the Communication Workers of America?
So move.
Okay.
Second.
And we do have a public speaker for this item.
Okay.
And he knows who he is.
I was going to say, I don't have that on here.
Action item.
Okay.
Good evening, Dr. Moore, distinguished board members, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Joseph Rubino, and I am the president of CWA Local 3180. First off, I'd like to thank Dr. Moore for his recommendation of acceptance for this contract to the board. I would also like to thank the district bargaining team
Dr. Soot, Ms. Christofoli, Ms. Barker, Mr. Green, and Mr. Smeltzer, who spent countless hours working tirelessly in order to reach a mutually beneficial agreement for the CWA members and the district as well. Finally, I'd like to thank the CWA membership who supported their executive board throughout this process. We spent many late nights after work and on weekends trying to incorporate the many suggestions of our members into this new contract. I'd like to thank Lori Taylor, our Vice President, Barry Deem, our Treasurer, Claudia Villadrosa, our Secretary, and David Betts, our Area Rep. I just wanted to say thank you for all your commitment, hard work, and all the free time you all sacrificed away from your family for the good of the membership. Without all of you, none of this would be possible. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you. We have a second speaker, Mr. Marsh.
Good evening, Board. Michael C. Marsh. Just wanted to thank all those hard-working individuals that were part of this. The work is good. It continues to be good. It's going to get greater in December. Thank you. Good night.
Okay. So I'd like to call for the vote. Those in favor of accepting the approval of the collective bargaining agreement between the school board and the Communication Workers of America, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Congratulations, it passes 5-0. Can we do them
Madam
both?
Chair, if you can,
We want to do them both at the same time, or no?
let's do them one at a time.
Okay.
So the chair and myself will go down and we'll sign the contract as Joe signs the contract as well, and then we'll take a pretty picture.
Today's 8/26. About 1,000.
I brought my own pen. Okay.
Now we're gonna go the other way.
Yep.
You stay here. No, we're gonna go by the other side, so the board can see. I can't, I have to.
There you go.
All right, so we're gonna, let me sign. Ms. Christofoli did not sign this one. Let's sign together, how cute. All right, let's switch. Joe, you
Yep, I
signed
signed
that?
up.
Did you see the white car pass you?
Yes.
I was the black,
was you?
I was the black truck that stopped when the
On
white car
opposite
passed.
side, yes.
So I saw that.
Yep, I saw that too. I saw the black
You
truck.
waved at me.
I did wave.
I
That's
recognize
correct.
you.
And I was thinking, this man doesn't even have to stop on the other side, and yet he did, and I appreciate that.
Oh,
very much.
so sweet.
Was there a median or no
Yes, there
median?
was a median.
Okay, then he didn't have to stop. Okay.
Well said. You're gonna have to put out a memo.
Okay, moving on to action item 9B. This is the amended approval of the 2024-2025 collective bargaining agreement between the school board and Indian River County Education Association, IRCEA. At this time, I call for the superintendent to discuss this item.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is the contract with IRCEA. This is a contract that we'll be initiating for the upcoming school year, and it allows a compensation package which flexes compensation depending on the years of experience, anywhere between 1.5% to about 7% of our employees. This board should be extremely proud of offsetting the compression that has been created in the state of Florida. In terms of overall compensation, as we reported this morning, the teachers in Indian River County have gone from 28th to 7th in average teacher pay, significant improvement, which is a significant investment you all have made in educators. With the signing of this contract, we expect to be in the top 4 or 5. That information is always lagged as it comes from the state, but we're excited about that. Highlights of this contract: it clarified language around participation in IEP meetings, clarifies the role and responsibilities of an impact review, and that they are not, in fact, evaluative in nature. Clarifies work day and work year expectations regarding time and responsibilities. Clarifies administrative meetings after school and clearly defines the frequencies in which they should be taking place. The bereavement leave program, once again in place for our teachers as well. Just an absolute outstanding contract. I want to acknowledge the team again, and you're going to hear some repeat names: Dr. Suit, Dr. Long, Ms. Basura, Mr. Bruce Green, Tracy Barker, who was the recording secretary for both teams, was in all negotiations for her work, for making sure we were recording everything appropriately. So that is this contract, Madam Chair.
Okay. So the school district and representatives from the IRCEA bargaining teams reached an agreement on a 1-year contract. I'd like to call for a motion for approval of the 2024-2025 collective bargaining agreement between the school board and Indian River County Education Association.
So moved.
Motion?
Okay.
Second.
All right, Ms. Rosario with the motion and Dr. Jones with the second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
We do have a public speaker.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
It's on that sheet,
So sorry. Thank you.
but it did
My
pass.
apologies. All right, forget that vote. Michael Marsh. Okay, you were first on the list, I'm just saying. Okay.
He's
Jennifer Freeland, go ahead.
You can keep that vote, though. That was okay. So Jennifer Freeland, the president of Indian River County Education Association. Good evening to the board, Dr. Moore and cabinet. I'm excited to speak here tonight. First, I would like to congratulate Dr. Jones on winning her next term. I'm also very excited to be here to sign the new collective bargaining agreement for 2024-25. 731 total votes were placed. 719 were yes votes. I can safely say that this is an overwhelming amount of support for this contract and some of the highest numbers we've ever had in Indian River County. This kind of turnout and this kind of support does not just happen. It takes innumerable hours of conversation, sometimes easy, sometimes heated, but always focused on what is good for our teachers and how it affects our students. Remembering that teachers' working conditions are our students' learning conditions. Although there is so much work to be done yet, and I am sure that Dr. Moore and I will not always agree. Sorry. But we have been lucky.
That is correct.
That is correct. We have been lucky to have a superintendent that is willing to step out of that proverbial box and embrace a new way of thinking. I can confidently say that we, IRCEA and SDIRC, with a partnership we have cultivated over the last several years, will continue to work together to bust any barriers that come between teachers and their students' learning. We will continue to have those hard conversations, relying on the relationships that have come out of this partnership we have built here in Indian River County. Though this partnership was tenuous at best in the beginning, it has become so much more than a negotiating model. Partnership is now ingrained in all the work we do and has become part of the very culture in this district. And I would like to thank the entirety of the negotiating team. This way I don't rename everybody, but thank you. And I'd like to thank all teachers for their support and time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Michael Marsh, your second speaker.
Michael Marsh, that was powerful, and that's it. Good night.
Okay.
Chair, can we make sure that comments are on topic?
Ms. Rosario, do you want to keep your motion?
What motion?
You made the motion
The previous
before
motion
the
to approve
speakers.
this.
Would you like to keep the motion as your motion?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. 'cause
Dr.
one
Jones,
motion
do you
has
want to
nothing
keep
do with
the
other.
second?
Yes.
Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? It passes 5-0. Thank you.
stand here.
And now I believe we have the appropriate presentation loaded. This is the superintendent's report for this month, and I'm going to highlight some academic outcomes because it's the first time that we've actually been convened in which school grades have been released. This is a chart that I've used since I've been here, and it looks at our surrounding counties, Charlotte, Martin, Indian River County is in the middle, and then Brevard, our neighbor to the north, and then Miami-Dade, my previous district. This is a slide that I shared in order to communicate to the community that there was a need for change, that we could not be complacent, that if other districts who were similar in size and other districts that were significantly larger and served a very complex community could have the majority of A and B schools, then the same should be true in Indian River County. And as you can see from this slide, and acclimate yourself to the slide because we're going to compare the impact over the last 4 years, where the only 47% of Indian River County schools were A or a B, the majority were C schools. And my challenge to the community then is that we should be very uncomfortable with the progress and performance of our schools, because we need to communicate the desire to create a strategic plan and then transform the system. As we dig a little bit deeper, you could look at Charlotte, and this is a little bit different than what we looked at this morning, board members. The first graph looks at Charlotte in 18-19 and then compares them to the outcome this last year. So you can see Charlotte, reduction in A's, significant increasement in C's. That's not the way in which a school system should be moving. This is Brevard County, a reduction in A's and significant increase in C schools and a reduction in B schools. So A's are falling to B's and B's are falling to C's. Not what you would like to see. Martin County, significant change. 50% of their schools or more, actually it was a little bit more, were A's in 18-19. Now the majority of their schools are B's, significant improvement or increase in C's, and they even have a D school. Not what you would want to see. This is my previous district, and they continue to grow A schools and B schools and reduce C schools. And then this is Indian River County, where you see the most significant change. 95% of your schools are an A or a B in comparison to only 47% in 18-19. That 5% is one remaining C school. So the rate of improvement, when we came in, we were talking with the board about the creation of the strategic plan. We were talking about having transformational impact. This is the foundation for that transformational impact. And this is what the chart looks like revised. And I've already committed to the board, when you see this chart again at the end of next year, you're going to see significant increases in that green bar for Indian River County and the elimination of blue and orange. So what I said 4 years ago, that each and every single school in this district should be an A, isn't an aspirational goal. It isn't something that is this pipe dream that maybe could happen. It's a reality. We are focused, we're doing the work, and we expect that to be the outcome for this school year. This is a chart that I created, and it looks similar to a hurricane track. And what we're looking at is the rate of growth in terms of state rankings from year to year. So obviously in 1920, there were no grades because of the pandemic. So if we're all starting at 0 and we improved 2 state rankings, the chart would take you up 2. But the following year, if you went down 2, it would take you down 2. So you see a lot of variation. between improving of 10 or decreasing of 10. Now, when you're in the top 10, you're going to see very little movement because you're already in the top 10. What this information doesn't include is the school district of Indian River County. So you look at all of these districts going up and going down. You have one district, Indian River County, who for the last 3 years has had the highest rate of growth in the entire state of Florida. So this is a representation of continuous improvement, going from 38th in 1819 to tied for 8th, but actually 9th in state rankings, is the highest rate of growth of all school districts in the state of Florida. So we're very, very proud of that. Now, how do we do that? We do that in partnership. We do that specifically by making sure we are the school system who thinks faster and makes decisions quicker than any other district. We engage at Engage. That was a play on words there. This is our summer conference with all of our leadership teams. So in this picture are the leadership teams of all of our schools where we are problem solving and creating the school improvement plans and the initiatives to ensure that we are all A schools. We did the same thing, what we call a vision setting here at the district offices, where we looked at each particular office, ensuring they understand how they support schools and the impact that they're going to have to enhance the level of service they're providing. Had the opportunity with our board to celebrate our retirees at Quail Valley. That was an absolutely outstanding evening, and we had a high level of participation even though it was July 31st. Back to school means a number of interviews, making sure our community is informed. So this is one I did with CBS. It was a very long interview. Thrive is the kickstart to our school year. That auditorium was filled, the energy was high, where we had the opportunity to speak with all of our teachers, all of our administrators, and then ultimately set the tone and expectation for the entire school year. That was a impactful, powerful day for us. Cannot thank our community partners for coming out and setting up tables and ensuring that they were there to communicate their opportunities for their programming in their particular schools. And then middle and high school orientations, our principals reported 80 to 85% of their families were in attendance. And what that does is accelerate the teaching and learning on day one. Up in the left corner, you see the auditorium at Sebastian River Senior High School. That's before school even starts, and that's clearly connecting and engaging with parents on what the expectation is, what you need to have in place for the first day of school. Elementary orientations, I was able to hit about 5 or 6 of them. Absolutely outstanding. Mr. Rosario, you can see a book vending machine in the top left corner.
You're going to add to that, right? You're
We
gonna add.
are on it. And Jackie Robinson, one of our biggest partners, that is me trying to motivate some students literally the Friday before they go back to school. That complex, if you haven't been inside, is state of the art, and it is a true attraction for our community. Can't thank Pathway Church for inviting us to set up a table and then share information with anyone who was there regarding the opening of schools. That literally was the day before school started. Absolutely outstanding. First day of school starts extremely early. This is the opening of school at the bus depot, and you can see us there just sending out some encouragement and love to our bus drivers. And yes, cameras were there as well. First day of school, over the course of the first 3 days, the cabinet and myself, we divided into 2 different teams to minimize the impact to principals and disrupting them, but we were able to visit every single school, and the need for that visit was to ask what they need in real time to make sure that we could absolutely provide it, as well as making sure instruction is taking place. And these are just some of those visits. And then last week, as well as the first week of school, we just really wanted to celebrate our bus drivers and say thank you to our community. So we made some signs, and as our bus drivers pulled out, if you haven't seen the operation of about 35, 40 buses pulling out from Vero Beach or Sebastian River Senior High School, it is absolutely amazing. At Vero Beach, they have to pull out from the main campus and drive to the Flick, and the Flick has to drive to the main campus. So it is a major operation. And we did the same thing at Sebastian, where the officers pull out in the road, they stop traffic, because we know if we can't get those buses out from the high school, they won't be on time for the middle school, and they won't be on time for the elementary school. But we're very, very proud of what we're seeing in terms of our on-time pick up and drop off. So we're very, very appreciative for their early mornings and late evenings. And then we were able to do an interview as we kicked off high school football August 16th. That's not the playoff crowd, that's the opening game crowd. And during that interview, I had the opportunity to share high school at Vero Beach is like, it is a college environment. It is something you absolutely have to see. And that is us last week doing the same sign rally at Sebastian River Senior High School. And then here we are today. So that is the update, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you, sir. So at this time, we'll have our citizen input. And I need to read the guidelines for citizen input to start. So these are the guidelines for citizen input according to the School Board Policy 0169.1. Each statement made by a member of the public shall be limited to 3 minutes duration. I'll be recognizing in the order in which the requests were received. The time shall start when the speaker is at the podium, and the public information officer will be the official timekeeper. As you see, the time clock is visible to your left on the dais. You will hear a beep at the end of your 3 minutes. Each person may speak for up to 3 minutes at the beginning of business meeting during citizen input, as indicated on the order of the business of the day, and for up to 3 minutes to each action item, agenda item during the action agenda, as indicated on the order of business. If a consent item is moved to an action item, when you come up to the podium, you may speak at that time or defer to speak during the presentation of that action item. People may only speak once about any given item. The time period may be extended by the presiding officer, and only the individual submitting a speaker's form is allowed to address the board. Time may not be yielded to other speakers. During the meeting, please refrain from clapping or outbursts of any sort, so we can proceed with dignity and decorum and not infringing on any individual's First Amendment rights. I need to remind everyone to direct all comments to the chair and not to individual board members or to the superintendent. Board members may or may not address any citizen input statements at the end of all the citizen input comments. As board members listen to citizens without interruption, citizens are asked to give board members the same respect, please. As per Florida Statute 1001.372, subsection 3, the presiding officer of any district school board may order the removal from a public meeting held by the district school board of any person interfering with the orderly process of such meeting, providing such officer is first issued a warning, and continued interference with the orderly processes of the meeting will result in that removal. The first warning is to everyone at this time. No personal attacks, no inciting, and no disrespect, please. I will be calling you up 2 at a time. The first person will be called to the podium to speak, and the second person will be in line to speak after that. Speakers shall not engage in personal attacks or abusive language. The chair has the right to terminate any speaker's privilege to address the board if that rule is violated. If you have anything to give to board members or the superintendent, please do this through our executive assistant, Mrs. Moray. It is clear that the board has taken action to comply with the law regarding instructional materials, including library books. If you are here to express your opinion regarding HB 1069 on materials in school libraries, we ask that you please visit staff in the lobby to initiate the challenge process. Finally, the school district supports First Amendment rights of speakers and rights outlined in HB 1069 regarding library materials. As such, some individuals may choose to exercise these rights, which may include reading material with language or content that is not appropriate for all audiences. Knowing this, please make a viewing decision appropriate for you and your family. All right, at this time, I'd like to call our first speaker, Mr. William Schrader. Is he here? Okay. On deck will be May Asensio. Hello.
Good evening. My name is,
Could you speak more into the mic? Is that possible?
good evening. My name is Bill Schroeder, Bureau citizen. For the last, I have a happy story, school story to tell you tonight, and I hope you enjoy it. For the last 25 years, I've been a governance consultant to a school in Massachusetts, and I go there once a year. Last fall when I visited, I was met by the principal who said, "Guess what? Big change here. No more phones. This is the way it works. The kids come in, they stick their phones in an envelope, get snapped shut, and the phones are disconnected." Later on, we're in a couple of classes. I guess the way your classes are, tables of maybe 3 or 4 students, and they're all hard at work. One was in history, and I think one in biology. And all the kids, every kid, eyes down, and they were really working. There's no phones, no distraction. What a difference. We stopped by and talked with a couple tables, and the kids were right with it. We left, bingo, back at work. Later on, we had lunch in the cafeteria with the freshmen and sophomore kids. Tables of 8 oblong, lunches served on trays, and the jabbering and the talking was unbelievable. It was all eyeball to eyeball, very different than it used to be, like this, looking like this, and they were happy. Reminded me of a girls' night out party in the restaurant. So 2 weeks later, I went to a fundraiser, a couple of hundred adults in the downtown hotel, and we had maybe all the juniors and senior kids were there in their uniforms, walking around, helping people get out of their cars, come in the lobby and show them how to get upstairs to the ballroom, taking them around to the various tables. And then when the rat-a-tat fundraising came, keeping people in pace so the money would keep flowing in. And during the time before the dinner, I talked to maybe 20 students. And of course, I asked them all about the phones. "Oh, we love it. Phones are great. We don't miss them at all." And I was getting honest answers. I was not getting school board statements to be related. These kids really didn't miss their phones. So I was hoping I'd get back this year and a dozen follow-up questions. But I'm not going to make it because of family problems. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. May Asensio is next. Lamar Noda Giacomo is on deck.
Thank you for all you've done, decisions as far as removing inappropriate books from the libraries, the school libraries. They say there are none so blind as those who will not see. And countless times has the difference between removal and banning been explained here, but there are those who will not see. So once again, per Webster's dictionary, remove is to change the location, position, station, or residence of, and ban is to prohibit, especially by legal means. The books that have been removed from our school libraries have been taken to another location, thus removal. They are now in the public library. Please go check them out there for your children. You may find many of them in the adult section or purchase them on Amazon. No one has, by legal means or otherwise, prohibited anybody from using these books. They are not banned. One of our board members tried to clarify the difference at last month's meeting and was called a Marxist for his trouble. This was nothing but a coordinated effort with CNN to champion inappropriate, sexually explicit books for children. Moms for Liberty received requests for comments from CNN before the school board meeting was even over. But why fret over having underage children exposed to pornography as long as books are being sold and there is free advertising on CNN for these authors' work? Of course they'll write letters. Letters addressing the non-existent issue of banning books contained comments such as, books deemed inappropriate mean the people in the books are inappropriate. No, it means the behavior the characters exhibit in the books are inappropriate. Students and parents should be allowed to choose, parents are not in the school libraries to guide their children in choosing wisely if these books are available. That is why these books are better suited for a public library. Yes, books are capable of planting seeds in child's minds, but let us be mindful of what type of seed we are planting. Will it be the seed of love of science or of helping their community? Or will it be the seed of promiscuity and sexual confusion that was not there before? This is about maintaining innocence and not forcing concepts that children are not ready to process due to their level of maturity. I'm going to guess that the group that read these letters from the authors were not present at the August 2023 meeting where excerpts were read from these pornographic books. Would they have walked out of that meeting upon hearing the sexually explicit content in books in our schools? Probably, since they can't seem to handle truth. However, they walked out of last month's meeting at the mere mention of truth and showed a lack of respect for different opinion. This from a group that is pretending to respect all groups of people. I guess some people just refuse to see. I'm proud to be a Moms for Liberty joyful warrior where our vision is 2020 and very clear on what the legal definition of pornography is, and it is unacceptable in our school libraries. So thank you for your work with that. And so we will continue to do what is right for our children and not the authors. Right is right and wrong is wrong. Thank you.
Okay. Lamar Nota Giacomo's next. Lynn Barletta is on deck.
I'm going to be very brief tonight, but I want to thank May for her comments because I agree with her 100%, and I appreciate so much what Jennifer Pippin and Moms for Liberty has done for our children. The focus should be on education and not sexually explicit materials. I also want to thank Kevin McDonald for working so hard in his campaign for school board, and I want to thank you for looking out for our children. I think you knocked something like 70,000 doors. I never saw your opponent, but anyway, I just want to thank you for working so hard to earn the confidence of the public, and I'm sorry that you didn't get elected, but thank you all. Please continue looking out for our children. They deserve respect, and they don't deserve pornographic materials in the school classroom. Thank you.
Okay, Lynn Barletta is next. Gregory Ross is on deck.
Hello, Superintendent Moore and Chair Barenborg and the board. I am Lynn Barletta, the CEO and founder of Visionary School of Arts and Florida Faith Alliance, and I'm here with a number of volunteers and our Indian River County coordinators. I want to applaud the board for inviting us in to present at your workshop over the summer. We fight child trafficking, and we equip schools and staff and students and teachers with live presentations, state-of-the-art peer-to-peer videos and curricula. According to the Justice Department, child trafficking is the fastest growing crime in the entire world. America is the biggest buyer of sex. Every teen and every child is at risk. Sexting and sextortion is present in all schools as the top gateway. Florida is number 3 in the nation for hotline calls. Right here in Indian River County, your sheriff arrested 8 men in the month of August, this August. And he was quoted as saying they potentially had over 16,000 counts of child pornography as young as infants. And this included a grandfather who used AI to take his little granddaughter's face and place it on child porn to market it worldwide, which is a form of trafficking. AI is now on the rise for use in approaching children online and selling child porn. Over 50% of all prosecutions in the USA involve online recruitment. Over the last year, we have documented another 10 arrests in Indian River that included a deputy from the sheriff's office, a police volunteer, a father trafficking his own 2-year-old son, and we work closely with Homeland Security and local law enforcement. We just finished training over 200 Martin County principals, staff, counselors, nurses, and social workers with live comprehensive workshops. Awareness has resulted now in many arrests, and I personally have turned in a number of tips that have rescued victims just from one awareness presentation. Our videos in Martin County will be released to all students grades 2 through 5 in middle school, high school this fall, as well as all teachers, since teachers are in the best possible position to recognize signs and take powerful steps in prevention. We are at a crisis, and I'm very hopeful that you will bring us in to do just what we completed in Martin County. And we also train all the state supervisors for the Florida Department of Health. and I have just presented to your curriculum department for consideration. I want to thank you for doing what is necessary to save lives. Dr. Moore, I know you want to lead the way. I'm here to help you. Thank you.
And Lynn will be scheduling to get this done, so
Yes.
we're going to get it done.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Gregory Ross, next. On deck is Marilyn LaVecchia.
Okay.
Good evening, school board. Thank you for allowing public comment. It's a very important thing to do. I highly appreciate it. My name is Greg Ross. I'm from Brevard County, if you don't know. I came and spoke on a couple of occasions last year.
I'm sorry, sir. May I?
This is my time. Can we
yes,
please stop the
it'll-
clock?
Okay, just stop the time a second.
This is for the attorney, point of order, participation, public participation, and vulgar and obscene items. I'm pulling up the policy right now. Can you please clarify for us the rules on obscenity or coming in with any signs of vulgarity or threatening manner or anything such as that? And would acronyms play a role in that?
Through the chair, the board's policy 0169.01 governs the public participation and speech that would be obscene or threatening or things of that nature, profane, are not permitted. That could include speech worn on a shirt or something of that nature, in which case it would be recommended to cover it up.
Okay. Sir, can you please turn around?
No.
Okay. Well,
So,
we have something
can we just
obscene
take
on
a
the back of
second? We
his
just take a
shirt,
second.
and I think that's very inappropriate.
I haven't seen the back of the
So-
shirt, so I don't know.
I have the floor.
Okay, go ahead.
It is inappropriate. It is
It's an
threatening.
acronym.
I don't care what it is. That's not
It's
how
an
we do
acronym
this
that
work.
I determine what it
I don't
stands
care
for.
what it is.
You know what, we're
It
going to
is
take
not
a
how we do
recess.
this
Hold
work
on.
in any River County.
We're going to take a recess. Zoom. At this time, I'm going to call the next speaker, Marilyn LaVecchia.
My name is Marilyn LaVecchia, and I'm a member of Education Champions, Advocates for Public Education. First, I'd like to acknowledge the accomplishment of Dr. Moore in our district for achieving an overall ACE score for the second year in a row. Only through the, thank you, I'm short. Only through the hard work and commitment of our administrators, teachers, and our students can we maintain this level of success. Congratulations to all of you. Earlier this summer, along with several Education Champion members, we spoke with Dr. Shafty about Dodgertown Elementary regarding their designation as a STEAM school. She said that it was an exciting program and encouraged us to visit the school to see for ourselves what the students would be experiencing. We took her suggestion and set up an appointment to visit STEAM Park just before school was scheduled to start. When we called to arrange our visit, we were told we would have someone, quote, take us on a tour, unquote. But when we arrived, we were greeted by Coordinator Terry Wall and her enthusiastic team of fully engaged educators. From the moment we stepped into STEAM Park, I was inspired by what I saw. What struck me most as I toured the science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics sections was that students would not just be learning facts from textbooks, they would be actively involved in hands-on projects and exploring new ideas with a sense of curiosity and excitement. I can envision students working on robotics, coding, art projects, and experiments that will spark their limitless imaginations. For instance, when learning coding from as early as kindergarten, the student has a book along with a hands-on game board that teaches them how to code as they work through the games. Kindergartners, how awesome is that? Offering STEAM education can help close the achievement gap, making learning engaging and relevant. These skills learned at elementary school level will not only lead to improved academic performance, but can carry their interests throughout their school years and into the future. The outcomes of this program teaches highly valued skills that will even be more crucial in the future. By providing this opportunity, we are giving children the chance to reach their full potential, and I hope to see more schools participate in STEAM, allowing students to become the innovators, thinkers, and leaders of tomorrow. In closing, I would also like to say that before leaving, we spent time with Felice Bagley, principal of Dodgertown, and her enthusiasm for her teachers and students is truly contagious. Congratulations to all of you who have had a role in this investment of our children's futures. Thank you.
Thank you. That was nice to hear. Thomas Kenny is next. Jennifer Pippin is on deck.
I have the Dorian Moore passing out stuff for you guys. Can I hold my time till we're ready? Thank you. Okay. First off, congratulations, Dr. Jones, on winning. Wonderful. I'd just like to talk about this, the infamous U.S. Constitution and Declaration of Independence that's been taking forever just to get distributed to 8th graders in our school. We first, at Monster Liberty, we do the distributing of these things. 28 of 29 counties in the state of Florida in 2022 took them. Following year, the same thing. Ours seems to not to, for some reason or another. The first year we were told this is a political document. I think any charter of a nation is probably a political document throughout history, whether it's a tyrant or where the people get to rule. It's a political document, it's a political statement, it's a statement of how a country is going to be governed, and I think every kid should engage in the civic matter. What I presented to you is this, that comes with the delivery of the U.S. Constitutions in the boxes. They're inserted, and I'll read it for the public here. It says, as an educational 501c3, the 917 Society does not align with, endorse, or otherwise support any particular political candidate, organization, party, or platform. We do support our Constitution, the democratic process, and encourage civic engagement. And that's what these books are all about. There was a thing mentioned about the QR code on the back, that if you scan this QR code, it'll take you actually to a digital copy of the U.S. Constitution on your phone or on your desktop, where you can access the material that's in this little booklet right here. It's great to have a hard copy. You can also access it in Spanish. That was one of the main reasons for this. So our Spanish-speaking students, whose primary language is Spanish, can also read the Constitution and see how this nation is governed, if they don't know. It's real simple stuff. It also gives opportunity, if you look at this paper, where we celebrate the Constitution, classrooms decorate, they do these things, and Constitution Week. And a school in Margate, Florida here, the Rise Academy 8th grade students, were one of many, 20, I believe, yes, that won $200 to decorate their classrooms however they wish after they won the contest. Simple, wonderful things to celebrate the Constitution. We have the language. It was done by a board member to put a disclaimer in here that is needed for these books to be passed out. This is not a political document in what it was said in 2022, and Mr. Barefoot was here, but it's a political document in that it is a charter of a nation. And so you have to look at it in very clear lenses, very educational lenses to understand it. And I think this is something every 8th grader should have, something every high schooler should have, and something every grade student should have as soon as they're able to read. And with that, I thank you all for considering this again. We're ready to go. We have all of the numbers that we need to pass these out to 8th graders. Thank you.
Okay, Jennifer Pippin is next, and Michael Marsh is our last speaker.
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Pippin, and I'm the proud chairman of Moms for Liberty, Indian River, Florida. I'm going to go a little off script here. I'm a little emotional, but thank you very much to the board, law enforcement, and everybody who just removed the gentleman who had threatening language for me on the back of his shirt. Kind of goes into my speech. Attack is a sign of respect. It means the enemy has discerned your potential, and the level of his attack is an indication of the level of blessing of God has in store for you and the other side of it. So instead of being discouraged about the battle, see it as a sign from God that your best days are ahead of you. Education, as Dr. Moore, Ms. Rosario, Dr. Posca, and Mr. McDonald know best, are more about us being prepared minds to be open to ideas. But some ideas are good, such as being honest and concerned with the well-being of others, and some ideas are actually harmful. As a member of Moms for Liberty, the whole basis of our existence of our nationwide organization is that we moms want to protect our children and the children from others from being indoctrinated from the so-called woke agenda, much of which is harmful to children. Adults can be as woke as they want to as long as it does not harm others. The last election in Indian River County is a learning experience for moms like me. And it's one I'm willing to embrace. Many of those who sincerely believe in wokeism are able to tar us moms with wanting to ban books. All of the local important media kept saying that they want us to ban books in hopes they could now write us out of town, like the good old days when the people of the South who disagreed with freeing the slaves tarred you and ran you out of town on a rail. But we aren't going anywhere. The children are too important. But we need to learn to not let others manipulate our message and not attack in kind who believe in wokeism. We need to be awake and loving. I pledge that going forward, I will be more awake and loving. To influence people, you need to know, and they need to care for their children just as much as you care for your own, and that their well-being is just as important as you caring for yourself. But being awake also means that, like most people, know the difference between good and evil and right and wrong. It's just common sense. Boys, whatever their inclination, should not be able to use girls' restrooms. And I believe 90% of the people in Indian River County and elsewhere agree with that. Wokeism does not. But those who subscribe to wokeism were shrewd and do not talk about that. Believers, as wokeism says, Moms for Liberty want to ban books. What we believe in is protecting vulnerable children. Young children should not be exposed to pornography in schools. Thank you for your time.
Okay, Michael Marsh, you're our last speaker.
Good evening. For once, it's not my shirt. So, a long election cycle Thank you, thank you. Imagine it's almost $500,000 and you still couldn't get rid of the vice chair, the sheriff, multiple county commissioners. Ouch. That's gotta hurt, huh? So much money. You know what that could have went for? I don't know, maybe a shelter for the couple hundred kids that identify still as homeless, and it still didn't work. When you run for office, if you can't go off your own merits and you have to stoop so low to attack ads, that tells you about the type of person that's running. And it's funny because I look around and some of them people who ran, they show ain't come tonight. Was it really about all the kids? Those PAC mailers were disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. From the sheriff's race to the school board race, but it still didn't work. We had state representatives, city council members. You had an entire team going after the sheriff, through the chair, Doc Jones, and you still couldn't get the job done. Not only did the community speak, but they spoke in droves, didn't they? Next, through the chair, I want to thank Ms. Rosario, because that policy that got rid of that billboard outside, now on US 1, not yet, a couple more months are paid there, but the billboard that sat in our school district for months upon months is gone. Speaking of the sheriff's office, I feel so much safer. There's something different about the sheriff's office. I can't put my finger on it, but I want to thank Captain Abalo. He's going to keep our kids safe, along with your Indian River County Sheriff. Next, I want to thank the PIO. You know, people take right to Facebook before they know the facts. There was a post recently about transportation, totally false. And thankfully for this PIO, every time she's tagged, she's on it, boy. Emails go out. So if you're going to speak bad about the school district, at least speak factual information. That transportation department, great department over there. IRCEA, absolutely amazing. Been through many IEP meetings. Something about Oslo that's different. Through the chair, we're going to get an A, Dr. Moore. Those Wildcats under Principal Morgan, the work is good, sir. When you come into Oslo, it looks like the other schools now. We're not the redhead stepchild. It looks beautiful over there. So that's it. In 2 more years, there'll be 3 important races, ladies and gentlemen. I just hope Jeff comes out of retirement for those races too. It's quiet, you can hear a pin fall, huh? Anyhow, I hope you guys have a great evening. I don't really plan on returning, it's getting a little boring, but at least the same people, they at least show up. Even if they are on different sides, at least we could be civil. Isn't that what it's about? Civility on the board. I heard that a few times. And through the chair, I want to thank congratulate our vice chair. You did it, Doc. We love you.
Okay, Dr. Moore, would you like to speak?
Just a couple things. Mr. Kenny, I will follow up with you. I guess this is a request, so I'll follow up with you. All right, so we'll go through that same process and do a brand new review for that. Also want to acknowledge we have a edu celebrity in our audience, and there's celebrities and there's people who are in education and they're edu celebrities. So Mr. Trent North is the superintendent in Douglas County, Georgia, and he is their state's superintendent of the year. So he is here. He is here not to observe our board meeting, but got in a little bit early. Tomorrow we'll have the opportunity to meet with Dr. McMahon regarding our systems of data, Ms. Becerra, and how we connect data to driving instruction in real time as quickly as possible. And I hope when he goes back to his home district, he's talking about those systems and not the board meeting. That's my goal.
Good luck. Okay, any other board members like to speak?
Yeah, I will.
Okay, Ms. Rosario?
No, go ahead.
Go ahead. First, I wish Ms. Barletta was here, but she's not here, so I'm glad that she showed up. Ms. Lynn Barletta from Florida Faith Alliance. I'm happy that we are still moving forward with partnering with her on Florida Faith Alliance's mission to combat child sexual predation and all the things that come with attacking children, essentially. And I'd like to just make a mention, there was something about thanking me for removing a billboard. I didn't have anything to do with a billboard. There's no billboard in front of the school board, in front of the school district, and I did not remove any billboard, nor did I have any impact on any billboard. The other thing is Constitution Day. Well, first let me just go, somebody mentioned obviously Constitution, but Constitution Day is September 17th. I think it's really, really important. I'm glad that you brought this up. The 9/17, I don't understand what other review needs to be done. It's already been reviewed. It's been reviewed probably 2 years already. This would be the 3rd year that it's in review. I mean, really, it's the same booklet, same thing. The Constitution doesn't change. The constitutional booklet is incredibly important. It is critical that children get a constitutional pocket size booklet such as this one in their hand for them to take or not, but at least that it would be available. I know that, Dr. Moore, you have said that students have received an electronic version, but you know, who in reality, which student is actually downloading an electronic or actually reading the electronic? The pocket one can be placed in, you know, their back pocket or their book bag, can be taken home. It can be reviewed. I mean, it is so important. Our Constitution is critical to democracy. Everyone likes democracy. Our Constitution is critical to democracy in our republic. So I think that it is really, really important, especially with 9/11 coming up. 9/11, the events that occurred on 9/11, no one knows how horrible that was, except for those who were actually there, although it may have affected other people in other places. But it is named as Patriot Day. Both of those things are coming up. I just think that we're just going around in circles trying to avoid the inevitable. So at any point in time, board members are allowed to make motions. And at this point, I make a motion to approve the 9/17 Society Constitution to be given to our students in 8th grade.
I second that.
Okay, so that would then be an action item?
It can be made at any time.
Right, but you're making it as an action item to be voted on.
It can still be made at any time.
I understand that. I just said you're making an action item for a vote,
You
correct?
Put it on action if you'd like, yes.
Okay. I'm just asking. That's what you're asking for?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to put it on action. Now we have 2 new action items. We are really challenging that tonight. Okay. Anyone else like to speak to citizen input? Mr.
Yeah, I would.
McConnell?
And on the same topic, actually, because as a society, we can only survive, much less thrive, if we can have agreement. Talked in the past about civility, but we do not have a religious society, so our agreement will not be based on a particular religious belief per se. But our society is based on an agreement that a set of rules and principles are going to govern our interaction with each other, and ultimately govern our actions towards each other. Because the Constitution is not intended to be a restriction on others. It's supposed to be us putting restrictions on our own freedoms for the sake of others. And so therefore it is highly important that we pass on the understanding of our culture and our rules and our principles to children so that, 1, they can understand what might be expected of them, but 2, so that they can live and have the privilege of the freedoms and the culture and society that we have lived in, those of us who've been around here for as many years as I have. So I think it's highly valuable, and I think it's the one thing we have that can draw us together when not everything else draws us together. So I want to speak in favor of it, not only for our schools, but for everybody, because I think we would have a lot more civility if we can agree to restrain ourselves based on this document.
Okay.
Just a couple comments. I think Mr. Schrader has left, but thank you for sharing that on the school phones. I was the principal at Sebastopol High School when the state statute allowed students to have phones on campus around 2008. And I was only a principal there one more year before I went up to Gainesville, and I knew that would be a problem, and it was. But I think this board's doing a good job of getting a better hold on it during the classroom, and Last year was tough, I think, with the discipline, but we knew those numbers would go up. So I'm very, very proud that we did that. Thank you to, I'm sorry, I forget your name, the workshop dealing with child trafficking. I know we looked at that. We talked about it. I know Dr. Moore was looking at a few other things that we had or what could work, but thank you for bringing that up because it's very, very important that we keep our children safe. Thank you.
Ditto. All right. With that, I'm moving to our consent agenda. I'd like to call for a motion to approve the consent agenda item as amended.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Dr. Posca, Dr. Jones. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, the consent agenda passes. Dr. Moore, did you want to say something about the consent agenda?
No?
The TAN?
No, if it's on consent, no.
Okay,
Send
we're
it
good.
home. Thank you.
Okay. All righty. So now moving to action, we've already voted on action letter A and letter B. We are moving to letter C. We do have two speakers for 9C. Mr. Marsh. This is for the approval to set public hearing date for the adoption of the revisions to School Board Policy 0165.1 agendas, 0164 notice of meetings, 0165 meetings, 0169.1 participation at board meetings, and the associated.
He's on action.
You, in consent agenda, you pulled that item.
We're in action now.
Yeah.
For action.
I moved to action.
We already did the consent.
I'm sorry, 9C.
Right.
I thought Ms. Doc Jones requested to have this pushed to,
Postponed.
I understand.
then it therefore.
I'm just reading the item and letting the speaker speak, and then we're going to talk about the.
Oh, it's not on the agenda. There's no, it's not there for him to speak.
It was already on action.
When board
okay.
members asking for postponement, we still have to vote on a postponement.
You did, when you approved the agenda.
No.
She asked to postpone the item,
Okay, all right.
okay? Not to postpone, like, take it off. All right. So let me finish. 0169.1, participation at board meetings and the associated speakers form. At this time, we have a speaker, Mr. Marsh.
Oh, thank you very much, Madam Chair, for letting me speak. So this item is so interesting because I kind of feel targeted. We didn't touch citizen input or anything surrounding it until I started to speak 10 times, which was my max. Very excited about that. But again, we're going to go through all this work with striking through words just to do what? To restrict speech. That's what this is. I mean, we try to figure, and let me not say we, because as of right now, it's the majority, but December's right around the corner. This restricts speech. Why not allow citizens, whether it's on the agenda or not on the agenda, we should be able to speak on all items. What this does is the same thing that happened months ago. And through the chair, your school board attorney already gave her word on it. And then what happens? We fast forward a few months, we have another attorney, and we flip-flopped, and we restricted my speech at this podium. But then just months prior, your board attorney made it very clear as to, yes, he's able to speak. So when does it end? We're going to do this to satisfy one board member and the majority because they don't like what I'm saying? It's not the messenger. God bless you, Kenny. It's the message. And if you take away our message, you're doing exactly what we get up here and fight for. Now, there's a difference between obscene and just allowing a person speak. What are you so afraid of that we're going to get up here and say, whether it's on the agenda? First off, then don't add anything. Keep it to as the agenda is printed. That's fair for everyone. But when you play this game just to make one person happy, you restrict speech. And I'm not really coming back, so I don't care what you do. But again, look at the policy. Why are we doing this? We're doing this because I spoke 10 times and I beat the system, and we don't want to keep hearing Michael Marsh get up here and respond to items. Listen, it's board business. Let the people speak. Even Ms. Pippin said I should speak. We're stronger together on that piece. So at what point do we stop infringing on our rights to speak? This is done just for me. I thank you. I feel so special that you figure out a way that I can't speak 10 times. I don't even want to come back and do it. I'm kind of done. I was just here to celebrate. But lastly, before I sit down and enjoy this 3 minutes, your school board attorney, through the chair, who's a real attorney and doesn't play one on the dais, has said, I can speak. And now we're going to put policy in place for verbiage to beat Michael C. Marsh. Am I that good? I think so. Good night.
Hey, Jennifer Pittman.
So if these policies do pass, we do ask through our membership to allow adequate time for changes to be made. In February of '22, when the citizen comment changed from a different time, it was voted on and discussed in the superintendent workshop prior. So if people were not watching that meeting, or if they were working, they were not aware of the time change in February 22. So all I'm asking is, if you do make this change, to please make sure you're pushing it through your social media websites, you're putting it on board docs, you're doing a Connect to Ed Home, you're doing an email, everything that you can do, so this way if people do want to speak, they don't realize that there's a time change when they do get here. And in that February 22 meeting was the first book vote, so there was hundreds of people here, there was hundreds of people outside and in the lobby, and it was very hard to get to the window and get there on time. And then when we found out it was changed and had to come inside, it was just a real hassle for people who were ready to speak, and 11 people didn't get to speak at that meeting because of the time change. So all I'm asking is, if you do approve these policies, to please be mindful not everybody is watching the superintendent workshop. Many of our parents are either working or they're with young children, and we're not aware of those changes. Also, I find it interesting that Brian Barefoot missed 12 meetings in 2 years. Some of those meetings he was not here, some of those meetings were on Zoom, and the first time that Dr. Posca is working and he went on a Zoom meeting, now this policy is getting in place. So I kind of find that interesting, that when you have a board member who missed that many meetings, so if they were consecutive, he would have missed a year of meetings. The one meeting that Dr. Posca, he clearly was working in his scrubs and his lab coat. Now this policy is getting changed, and that's PO 165. And I'm just going to end with, just be very careful. We've seen in other counties where you try to do a group public comment, where somebody will speak to the group and then they'll speak at the end if there's a long line of speakers, just making sure that the person is only speaking once during citizen comment. So for example, if I was speaking for Moms for Liberty and I went first, and then 30, 40, 50 speakers down the way, just make sure that we're keeping track, because a lot of districts did implement policies like that. And I see that you're making perfect, but you're not going to be the chair for forever. So just making sure that this is done, because it has been issues in other districts. So thank you for your time.
Okay, so the item is 9C, approval to set public hearing date for the adoption of the revisions to School Board Policy 0165.1 agendas, 0164 notice of meetings, 0165 meetings, 0169.1 participation at board meetings, and the associated speakers form. This item is for approval to set a public hearing for revisions to this policy. However, we have a board member that has asked for a postponement. Dr. Jones, would you like to speak?
Yes, just a few words on that. Setting policy is one of the most important jobs we do as a board. And when I look all through these policies, we spent a workshop and really talked about these, but then we got the writing back, and the district does a great job on trying to interpret what everybody is saying there, 5 board members, and I just think it's too much to just go ahead and approve these without really talking about them at a workshop. There are 5 policies. When we go to a public hearing, that means we agree with what we said in these changes, and I just think there's too many things that we should discuss, so I'd ask that it be postponed until our workshop, which is September 9th. Correct, Dr. Moore? September 9th, yes. We have a workshop, millage, and a safety meeting. So I just asked you to take a look at those. I'm sure you all looked through those. Some have very few changes, some have quite a few, but I just have a real issue with just saying we're going to do that. Goes to our public to review. I think we need to do a little bit more homework first, so I'd ask for a postponement.
Okay. Ms. Rosario, I'm going to ask that you speak next if you want, because you're the one that brought all these policy changes, correct?
But the item is not for approval. The item first is for
I understand.
postponement.
Do you want to speak
So
to the postponement?
I
That's
do
what I'm
not want to
asking.
speak to the postponement, no.
Okay. You want to comment? Go ahead.
I mean, I hear your words. We did spend a lot of time discussing these at workshops, and even some of them going back to prior workshops, we really started discussing some of these. So I guess if you're asking for a postponement, is there anything right now you can point to that you have a concern about?
Well, one by one I do, but I would like to wait, see if we get the postponement, because then I'm going to ask for something else if that doesn't happen.
Okay.
A little bit, I know where you're going with that, yes, sir. And I agree with what Dr. Posca said for the most part, but we hadn't discussed the wording that had come to us yet. That was a week before the agenda, and we know we always get them a week before, so obviously I couldn't talk to board members about that, so that was my main concern, but thank you.
Mr. McDonald? No?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I'm sorry, I changed my mind. May I address? Okay, with regard to postponement, we discussed it in June on our June 10th meeting. We discussed it in July at our July 22nd workshop in detail, every single one with all of the corrections and edits. Very few were made. Where is Ms. Christofoli? She's not here right now. Oh, no, I'm sorry, Dr. Jacobs. Dr. Jacobs took copious notes on whatever the feedback was from the board members. That was July 22nd workshop. We all provided feedback. It is in our minutes. On August 19th, it was posted with 7-day notice, and board members had plenty of time, just like all other policies. This is no different than any other policy. Every other policy follows the same process. It goes to workshop, it goes through the vetting, it gets corrected or whatever, it gets presented to board members in 7 days in advance, and then it comes to a business meeting. It's no different, and here we are tonight. I'm sorry if you didn't have time to review it or ask questions, but everybody has time to review everything, which, in my opinion, I believe there was only one thing that was significant, and that was the form, which is what was presented to me, and it was just the format of the form.
Madam Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
I did review all of it. My statement was we haven't talked about it since the wording came out with all the wording. And as far as every policy gets the same way, no ma'am, we had a policy recommendation with a motion today. We had a policy recommendation 3 months ago about the discussion item, and that policy was changed on the spot. So yes, this is the correct policy, what we're doing as far as formatting. I'm just saying, with all the changes, we haven't been able to discuss as a board. So that was my only reason. But I respect what you're saying.
Yeah, we talked about it on the workshop in July, so.
But not the final wording that we had.
Yeah, one concern I have is, for example, a couple of things in here. The virtual participation was something I had brought up and then didn't discuss again.
Well,
As a matter of fact, I took it down and didn't ask for it to come back up. So that didn't come from me, by the way.
No,
So that's one thing that we never discussed.
Well,
I'm not done. Another thing that we didn't discuss was the terms. I'm looking, there was a term that you used, and I was sitting there going, propositions instead of votes or something. I'm not sure exactly how you put that. I can't find it right now. So there were a couple things in here that I have not had the opportunity to discuss with the board members, which I guess is what we're supposed to do tonight. But I'm going to tell you, with the number of policy changes we have here, we could go into the wee hours with some of the questions that I have or other board members might have. So that's why I like the fact that if you bring it to a workshop, that's where we have those times, that amount of time to be able to discuss.
we did it in workshop already.
But we did not discuss what you put in here
Well,
in workshop.
I will actually, I'm going to address the virtual. The virtual is indeed something that I want to bring up separately from the postponement, because I do agree with you on the virtual. This isn't the time to talk about it, but the virtual was added on, not even by me. The virtual part was added on by district as a result of Neola's recommendation, not me. But that would come during the regular discussion of it, which is what I was going to bring up anyway. So, but that's separate and apart from the postponement conversation.
So we vote on
Okay, so let's take a vote then. Would you like to make a motion to postpone this?
Yes, I would like to make a motion to postpone action agenda C, approval to set public hearing date for the adoption of the revisions to school board policies 165.1, 164, 165, 169.1.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor. Is there a second? I'll second it. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Opposed.
Opposed.
Okay, so it fails, the postponement fails 2-3.
Fails 3-2.
Well, it's a failure, so it's 2-3. Okay. So, moving on to the item then. So there is an item on the floor for approval to set public hearing for the adoption of the revisions to the school board policies. So I'm going to suggest that we look at each of these policies to discuss separately.
Madam Chair, can I just
Yes.
present it is my item.
Yes, I know.
So staff did a absolutely outstanding job of listening to board members, and I think all of you do acknowledge this process that we established through the protocols. I would say 95% of the time, 98% of the time has worked very efficiently, meaning the board has a conversation, 5 individuals, 5 different perspectives, and we capture the desire of what I believe to be the board proper. And then we forward that specific item. So yes, these are a number of policies that were put together, and this is the standard way in which we have always done it. And it is a lot of change, but not significant in terms of, well, it is significant from the board meeting, from the workshop to this specific meeting. But I would encourage the board to have that discussion and ask any questions, whether it be of myself or staff. The addition of the virtual component is you need to keep in mind, we are also going through the Neola process, which we're going to bring 85 policies to the board. So it wouldn't behoove us to approve this policy and then a month later add in the recommendation regarding the virtual thing. So it wasn't a recommendation of Ms. Rosario, who took the initiation of writing these. It wasn't Ms. Berenborg, who had a similar thought 2 or 3 months ago. It was actually staff saying, let's get in front of this so we can be efficient. And you have not had a public conversation regarding that piece of the policies. You are not approving the policies tonight. You're just sending them to a public hearing. It will come back at the October board meeting because we don't have a number of days in between this meeting and the next board meeting to have it appropriately advertised. You will hear from the community. Typically, we have no one speak regarding these policies, but you may have someone speak to this particular item, and then ultimately you will be approving these policies in October. So tonight, I think it's valuable that you have the conversation, but you'll have the opportunity again in October after you hear from your community, if they choose to speak, to have yet another conversation. So I just wanted to kind of rationalize the structure as to why these items are coming before you, just adhering to the protocols that you as a board have created. Thank you.
Okay, let's start with policy 0165, meetings. Is there anyone that would like to discuss that one?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Dr. Jones.
Obviously, we use Robert's Rules of Order, the latest edition, in our policies. I'm not sure why we added special rule of order, Florida Uniform Rules of Procedure, which I understand what they are, but I just think sometimes when you add these things, makes it a little bit harder to fine-tune it. So what would be the purpose of that? I did talk with a certified parliamentarian. It's just kind of muddying the water when our Robert's Rules, I think, work pretty well in our policies, our bylaws and policies on how to run meetings. That was one of my first questions.
Who are you asking the question of?
Dr. Moore?
Okay, Dr. Moore.
So when it comes to these particular policies, the language that has been added is legally sufficient. If it is the will of the board to add this language, then it's the will of the board to add this language. It does become, and I have said it a number of times, it does become more complex the more information that you add or that you vary from Neola's structure. But that is the prerogative of the board to do so. So as we create policies that are not, that vary significantly from Neola, it requires a significant amount of work to track. So as an example, just to understand that, the 85 policies that are coming for change to the board come based on Neola's previous policy. They don't track our changes or modifications to our policies. That's our job. So it becomes very efficient to do when we have minimal changes.
Okay.
We were not tracking those changes prior to my arrival. It literally took Ms. Dampier years to go back and review policies to find out, well, the board changed this, the board changed that, the board, and I'm not saying that is a negative thing. It's the prerogative and right of the board to do so. But as we changed it, it does become more complex on staff, and the volume of time, I have to shift responsibilities in order to make sure those things happen or ultimately get done. So when we go through a process here, these have been reviewed for legal sufficiency. They have, they're longer probably than what Neola has. You're adding definitions. There's another section where you can include definitions in our policies where it's definitions. But based on the conversation that I listened to in workshop, and my job in that specific reality was to listen to the board, all 5 board members, and create a policy that was reflective of that conversation. And I think that's what we did based on that conversation.
And I understand that, you know, one board member might say something, the other one doesn't say anything. Might not always mean that you agree, but that was my main question. Why would we have that? A couple more on that area.
May I ask what question you had? Because you
Well, I just
mentioned-
didn't know why we added special rules of order, Florida Uniform Rules of Procedure. He said.
Where do you see that in this policy?
Is that 165? Or 165.1?
Yeah,
Oh,
Yeah, okay.
yes.
Dr. Moore, when you said this is legally sufficient, but we were also legally sufficient before we added this.
Correct.
Okay, I just didn't know why it was added. The special meetings, where it says no less than 24 hours for emergencies, at least 72, preferable. I'm okay with that, but sometimes emergencies happen and you have them the next day, and obviously we'll do our best on that. But preferable 72, but we'll at least give 24 hours. Is that correct? Okay, just want to make sure there. And the video recordings, I mean, these people come here to speak because they have something to say. And I'm not sure if we had this years ago, but it says that all faces and board members' faces be present, that you could see the faces. I don't know if anyone's coming here to see their face. I think they're coming here because they have something very important to say. Why would we add that, or what would be the purpose? I mean, the purpose is the business meeting.
I said that at the workshop. That was a decision that I made, and the board is, by this policy, removing that authority from me. So I did make the decision, to have the one camera view that falls down. We don't go camera 1, camera 2. We're not moving, we're not focusing it on people who are coming to speak. We're not focusing on board members. We simply have one camera view. Does that make it harder to facilitate a board meeting? Do we only have one digital specialist where we had 2 in previous years? Yes, it does make it more complex. Can I do it? Yes. And as the board had that conversation, I think I said almost the exact same thing, the exact same way. But there was no desire from any board members to say, I don't think we should have it that way. So I left it the way that it was.
Okay, and continuing on 165, the virtual participation. Roll call. Okay, it says all votes taken during a meeting conducted with at least one board member participating through an electronic means of communication shall be by roll call. That's on the virtual component that was added, correct?
That was added. That is new language. That's yet to be discussed by the board proper.
Okay, all right, I just had a question on that. Was that Neola, Dr. Moore?
That was a Neola recommendation that we kind of fast-forwarded, so we didn't have to bring this policy back twice.
Smart, too.
Okay. And one last thing on 165. I think it was in this one, please forgive me. Minutes of the meeting, public record, when the person responsible is finished before it's sent to the board for approval, it is public record.
That is
So even though we haven't approved it, and then we may have some corrections, it's public record, and they may be getting something we didn't say or we didn't approve.
Yep, that's the law.
You. So we can correct that as soon as possible.
Yeah, and it's just because we're a public entity, it is a fact of public record, but then ultimately it does come before the board as an opportunity, and if anything, it does help everyone to make sure that we're looking at it and making the corrections to the minutes. I think we had an issue probably 6-7 months ago in which we cleaned up some language. So I do send those to board members as soon as we have them to give you as much time as possible to read. And if anyone asks for that public record, we would provide it, because ultimately it's capturing this meeting that's being recorded and presented live anyway.
Ms. Moret and your team does a great job on that, but just the minute it's finished. I don't remember the timeline on how soon we get them all the time, but.
She is her own team, so thank you.
I'm sorry. Thank you, Ms. Moret. All right, that's all I have on that one.
Okay, anyone else?
Oh.
On this item?
I
Mr.
don't
McDonald?
know if we actually came to a conclusion regarding the addition of special rules of order in Florida's uniform rules. And I tend to concur with the idea that knowing Robert's rules is quite difficult, and interjecting those other two rules would probably make it virtually impossible for us to know which rules we follow and how to proceed.
I agree. And I'm sorry, Madam Chair, sorry.
Yeah,
You go ahead, sorry.
okay. Are you done?
No, I'm sorry.
I would like to hear other opinions, because I guess I would lean towards maybe not including those.
I'm sorry, say that again. You're
I
leaning
said
towards.
I would like to hear what others feel, because I would lean towards not including those.
Okay.
And not making it more complicated and difficult.
All right. Anything else on this, Mr. McDonald? You have the floor. I know everybody else wants to interject, but you have the floor.
Then I'm going to talk for all night.
Okay.
No, I'm finished.
You're good? Okay. Dr. Jones, did you want to interject?
I'm just saying that I did talk to a certified parliamentarian about that, and he just said it could be a little bit murky when you add all of this. And I looked it up. I haven't used those before, but maybe Ms. Shattuck could just say a little bit your feeling on that one. I think Robert's rules and our bylaws are plenty for what we needed to guide us.
Yes, thank you, through the chair. So when you have Robert's rules, that governs your meetings, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that's the only thing that governs your meetings. So your bylaws also govern, and then any other statutes, like uniform rules and statutes, those things also govern. So some of the things you get from Robert's rules, but you also have to keep into consideration that something like Florida statutes would trump, right? So anything that's set forth in the law would ultimately trump. So you might have a law that says, you know, all board members have to vote unless there's a conflict of interest in Florida, right? And so you have to do that even if Robert's rules, you know, doesn't have that rule. So that's where you do have to pay attention to, you know, more than just Robert's rules.
So we have, sorry.
No, that's right. Are you still talking about that?
Yes, so we have Robert's rules, bylaws, and then obviously we have to follow state statute. I just think a couple of the things would just make it challenging or difficult.
Ms. Rosario?
This line here was taken directly from the Sunshine Law. So that's why it is in here. We originally had Robert's Rules of Order, but in consultation with legal and getting an understanding of what legal sufficiency, I believe Ms. Shattuck's explanation is pretty clear there, that there could be times where we would need to use something else other than Robert's Rules. But we know that our meetings are run by Robert's Rules. Our general meetings, rather. Dr. Moore mentioned something about the videos and that we would be removing his authority. In fact, I would disagree. When the decision was made to change the view of the camera, you actually removed our authority, because the board meetings are the board's, not the superintendent. It's not a superintendent meeting. And so with making that decision without consulting the board or allowing the board to be a part of that discussion, it removed us from that discussion. And this board member did come to you with concerns over it. If others didn't, and it's not so much about the video where it's focusing. I think it's just the fact that the decision was made without us in our board meeting. So it was made without consulting, and I just think that it should go back to the way it's been for forever. The other thing I will also say that the last part of this policy, virtual participation, I do agree. I think because it was added on, I understand the concern about not revising the same policy again in a few weeks or next month or whatever, whenever Neola's comes back to us. But I do believe that in this particular circumstance, it would probably have served the superintendent better to have better prepared the board members on this one particular part, on the virtual participation part. I know that I was, detailed on it. I'm not particularly happy with the language in this part, The second paragraph is very confusing. And again, this comes directly from Neola. And board members, I would also just tell you that even though Neola is recommending this is not, I was told it was not based on any changes in law. Neola recommended it. I have no idea why. Only just because they recommended it, has nothing to do with any changes in law or changes in the sunshine. To my knowledge, it was just their recommendation. We don't have to agree to it at all, and just continue with the way that the work has been going. It doesn't really change the work if you're remote, and everything here just basically says the same thing that we're doing anyway. But that second paragraph actually reads, a board member may attend virtually in instances where a member is unable to attend in person due to a scheduled absence from the district or due to a physical restriction preventing attendance. The board member is responsible for making advance arrangements with the district administration to facilitate participation in the meeting. I just think that last sentence would just be suffice. I don't think anything else. If you can make it, you can make it. If you can't, you can't. And we all just notify the superintendent anyway. I'm not going to be able to make it. I'm going to be on, Teams. I just think it's way too wordy and complicated to just say the same thing. But that's my opinion. If you all want to keep it in, I'm fine with keeping it in. It doesn't change basically anything in this policy, but, it's just complicated language for no reason, to be honest. That's it. Yes.
Okay. You didn't have anything on this?
I got nothing to add. It looks good.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to start with the first green, which is all board meetings conducted with accordance to Robert's Rules of Order. I'm going to have to go back and look and see where that's written, because I only remember Robert's Rules of Order and the Florida statutes, and the State Board of Education is what rules our meetings. So I'm going to have to go and see where the special rules of order and Florida's uniform rules of procedure are stated that we have to follow that, because that's new to me. The other thing is on video recordings. So I'm so old that I remember when we were in the old building and we didn't have video recordings. So you made the comment that that's been going on forever. It has not been going on forever, because we did not have video recordings back in the day. And I remember when we first started them, and why they became the thing to watch on Friday night with your beverage of choice is because people would get up there because the camera was on their face, and they would speak to anything they wanted that had anything to do with anything in their life. And there was no time period back then. So they were just going on and on and on and on and on, and they were running for elections for different things in different places, and it was just comical to watch. I don't want to be the Friday night comedy show. I want to be the board business talking about education and kids. Well, I don't understand why we have to video record. If tonight wasn't a good example of why we shouldn't video record people, I don't know what else. You know, we had an incident tonight where somebody wanted to make a statement and have it on video. And now they have that and they can use it. And that's what this is about, is using it for other purposes. So to me, I don't even want the video recordings. I don't think we need them. In law, it says you just have to record your meetings. It does not say you have to do it by video. So I understand we do the video recording of the meeting so people can see what's going on with the school board. I have no problem with that. I do have a problem putting somebody's face up front and center or their shirt or whatever their message is that they want to say, because it's a political statement. I think we've had enough political statements. If we're going to be the leaders of the town to say, let's all kind of kumbaya come together, let's do that. You know, let's stay away from the politics and let's focus on education and let's stop with all the grandstanding. And that's grandstanding when somebody's doing something like that we saw tonight. So I have a real problem with that. The other section I wanted to get to was the part with the video being on Teams, virtual participation. The reason I brought it up, and it probably wasn't good timing on my part, I apologize for that. It had nothing to do with that. It had to do with the fact that when Mr. Barefoot was absent a lot, there were times where I was sick, and there was one time in particular that I was at home sick and was going to be on Teams, but I had to come in sick because we wouldn't have had a quorum. And by law, we have to have 3 people sitting on this dais. And if we always have the same 2 people on Teams, how fair is that to the other 3? It's not. You know, we all committed to be part of this board. We all committed to give our time and energy to that. I understand when you're called away for a meeting or we have a vacation once in a while or something like that. That's fine. I just didn't want it to be a continuous thing like it happened before. And so that's the reason why I brought it up originally. I just wanted to make sure that we aren't putting other board members in the problem of trying to get a quorum. And that was the problem I had before, was, you know, do we have a quorum? I would always ask every meeting, do we have a quorum? Do we have a quorum? And I want to make sure that we're not ever put in that position where we can't meet because we don't have a quorum. So that's the reason why I brought that up. As far as the roll call, I like that because sometimes you can't hear what somebody's saying or there's a delay. And so I'm fine with the roll call, I just got to remember to do it. So somebody's going to remind me that if somebody's on Teams, we have to do a roll call for every vote, okay? Those are the issues that I had with all of those. So I remember when the video thing became a real nuisance. And it seems to have kind of calmed down a little bit other than tonight. And I just don't want to go back to that, that's all. That's the reason why I'm okay with the one camera shot. People can see who's there, you know, and if you look at other boards across the state of Florida, a lot of boards do that. They have it of the whole room, so you can tell who's going up to speak, you can hear the person's name, you just don't have to focus in on what their political statement is that they're wearing or seeing or talking about, so, or wanting to show. That's all. All right, so that was on 0165.
Can I comment on 165?
Yep.
So since it came up, I just want to say that I go to great lengths to make sure I schedule work obviously around these board meetings. These board meetings take great priority. I'm constantly maneuvering my schedule to make it, as I am very happy that I do. You know, I'm glad to be here. Sometimes I get calls, though, from a director of a hospital, and they say, you know, somebody just went out on emergency maternity leave. They got a problem with their baby. Someone else is in the hospital. We can't staff our hospital. And they know me personally. And I have to choose between knowing that patients are going to be at risk, because the doctors that are there are going to have way too many patients. They're probably going to be burnout and make mistakes, or I can participate virtually. And I think it's a very rare event that it happens, but sometimes, you know, sometimes I got to go see patients, and then sit down at a desk and have the meeting. And I certainly hope it doesn't happen very often. I don't think it will, but I think I'm always going to strive to make the right decision, and I think I have.
I understand, not a problem. I just don't want it to be in the habit again of what we had before, so that we don't have a quorum. That's all. That's my concern. All right, let's move to 0165.1, which is agendas.
Madam Chair, would
Yes.
you, since we just discussed it, you wanted to bifurcate? Do you want to just
I
vote
need a
on each
motion to
one?
bifurcate. Well, we don't really need to bifurcate because this action agenda item is to approve to set a public hearing. So we don't have to bifurcate unless
Yes,
people are
you're
saying
right.
we don't want to put one of them on a
Yes.
public hearing.
Yes, you're right.
Okay. We're just discussing, like the superintendent said, now's a good time to discuss it for the first time, and then when we have the public hearing, we can discuss it again. Okay. Who would like to speak to this item?
Which one is it again?
0165.1 agendas.
I've got one note on that one.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll make sure I'm right here. 165.1, action or proposition. Again, that kind of, to me, we haven't used the word proposition before. We have our
Can you
act.
speak in the mic?
Sorry. We haven't really used the word proposition before. You know, I've researched it and so forth. We have action items, we have consent items, we have consent items pulled to action. Again, I just think it's too much. I think what we're doing works really well. And that was one of the components. And I think this was also the one, excuse me, where we're looking 14 days regarding, sorry, getting information. Dr. Moore, was that the 14 days one? And I'm thinking to myself, a lot of time and a lot of changes could happen. We get it to you 8 days ahead, so the press can know it 7 days ahead in our community. And I have a concern with that. Am I correct on that one?
So
14 days?
in most circumstances, 14 days would be fine. But when how I've structured the office and the timelines that we've established, we're 5-6 weeks ahead of the work anyway. There always will be the last piece of information regarding a contract that's not in, the things that are outside of our control, but typically, that wouldn't be an issue, and when it does, in all honesty, I would just notify the board as we currently do.
Okay. Okay, I just had a concern over the 14 days. Even if a board member wants to add an item, it may not come to you 14 days ahead, something comes up. So we'll be flexible if we need to be flexible. That's my main concern, okay?
Anyone else on this item?
No.
Ms. Rosario?
Yeah, the proposition is not something new. It was on one of our old agendas, but it just wasn't clear. You know, it was on one, but it wasn't on another. Anyway, it's in our Sunshine Manual, and it is covered under statutes 286.0114. Number 2, it says, members of the public shall be given a reasonable opportunity to be heard on a proposition before a board or commission. And then it continues with proposition and so on. So that's where you get that. The other thing is, I think that was it.
Just one more comment.
Yes, go ahead.
Again, even what Mr. McDonald said earlier with bylaws and adding something, it might have been older agendas. I just think that what we have is working and what we had was legally sound. Am I correct, Ms. Shattuck?
Through the chair, yes, that's
Okay.
correct.
All right, thank you. It's only comment on that one.
Okay, Ms. Rosario?
No, nothing more.
Good. All right, so, yeah, I was wondering where the 14 days came up. Why are we moving from 8 days to 14 days?
Well, we talked about this. We're not moving. It's when he can provide it for us 14 days in advance. This would be a perfect example. If you didn't feel you had 7 days enough time to review the policies that have come before you, he could give it to you 14 days in advance and give you 2 weeks to review it before a board meeting, rather than give it to you 7 days before. There's no reason to give it to us. There were items that come before us that there's no reason for us to receive them 7 days. we could get them way before, have plenty of time to ask questions. I forget what it was that, let's talk about the foundation. When the items for the foundation were presented, they were presented to us 7 days prior to being on a formal agenda. I had a lot of questions. And once something is posted and made public, no changes can be made to that document. Questions could be asked, but no changes can be made unless it comes to the board in a public hearing, in a public meeting. And so if with 7 days in advance, what happened, sorry, I don't mean to point over here, it's where I sit, exactly where you are, where we, when we came to the workshop, I wound up asking questions for an hour and a half on items that were very significant that needed to be changed on the foundation, on the bylaws of the foundation. But had we been given more time, I would have been able to come to the superintendent on day 14, he would have given it to me. Day 15, 16, I could have said, hey, I've got concerns about this, 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 and this. And then on day 7, he could have said, those concerns have been addressed, here is the final document. Rather than sit before, although I'm okay with that, if we don't get it in plenty of time, then, you know, we'll have the public discussion. But
So you're saying that 14 days then would shorten our meetings? We wouldn't have as long a discussion?
no, I'm not saying that at all.
Darn it.
Is that what you wanted?
No, but I think
there are some items
you're
that
having
could-
conversation, and there's always going to be the exception to the rule.
Right.
But the majority of time, I get accused of being too early, and I already are briefed you on items that you're going to have in 6 weeks. So the process for me, the addition of this 14 days changes hardly anything in terms of how we do this work. And you have that information.
I've got the floor,
presented.
I have another example.
Hold on, I've got the floor. So I'm okay if you want to just keep it 14. What I have a concern about is if a board member wants to bring an item. And the reason why is because, like, I just went to the East Regional meeting, and had I had the 14 days, I wouldn't have been able to make the item for here, and it would have been relevant. We would have waited a month and a half versus just 2 weeks for that discussion. So I have a hard time with board members doing that because we go out into different things. If I go on a different meeting here, that was a good example. I went to that meeting, got some information, wanted to bring it back and present it to the board. Had I not had that information prior to 14 days, I would have had to wait another meeting. And that would have been a whole month because of the workshop. So I have a hard time with that for board members. So I see where it says, have every effort made in good faith to provide board members with something. The agenda shouldn't be distributed no later than 7 days. So I still think that we should honor the 8 days where it says may add individual agenda items 8 days prior to the meeting. So I'm fine with that as long as board members aren't expected to get away from the 8 days, that's all. Yes, Dr. Jones? Okay.
I just want to reiterate, 7 days ahead for me was fine. I read every word on this agenda as I do every time. I just said that we had not had time to discuss all the changes that were sent to us. We cannot discuss those after we receive them on the agenda, which we are doing now. So obviously there was some concerns, some issues, and I just think at a workshop we could have really tightened it up before we sent it to policy. I'm very good with the 7 days. I read every word that's sent to me. Thank you.
Rosario?
The 7 days is not for us. The 7 days is
I
for the
understand that.
superintendent.
I'm just saying I don't
So
want
if
it to be assumed that it's for us.
No, it shouldn't, and if it is not, it's actually the superintendent presenting to us items that will be on the agenda 7 days in advance, and in good faith, 14 days in advance, or however, I don't have it in front of me exactly.
Right,
That's
do
not for
you
us.
remember when we were first on the board, we were getting them on Friday night
No,
to be
I-
voted on Monday? You
Well,
don't
yeah,
remember that?
I do, and then that
Okay,
changed, and we
right.
would get items, not everything.
No, but we would
it-
get some items brand new on Friday night. Yes, before Dr. Moore was here.
I'm not disagreeing with you. We did have a lot of issues there. And And we have come a long way, but there are plenty of times where 7 days just isn't enough time for us to review certain items. It isn't. And sometimes you do need more time. Here's another example. We have our meetings with him on, let's say, I think all of us have a meeting with him on Monday, with the superintendent on Monday. I come into a meeting, I don't know what we're gonna discuss. I often go in blind. I have my own list. But now, if I had another week of notice of, hey, next week we're gonna discuss these items, tentatively we're gonna discuss these items, I can come in on that day, on that Monday, prepared to ask questions, prepared to say, hey, I don't really like this, or where does this come from, or how can we, tweak this? Whereas we're given that item on that Monday, and once it's published by 5 p.m., it's done. No other changes can be made to it. So it goes nowhere. It's useless at that point, and it just has to wait until we meet in our meeting, either in our workshop or in our board meeting. And that's not okay for us to do business. For us to do business, we should be prepared walking into our meeting with him instead of saying, well, this is gonna be on the agenda. I can't tell you how many times we've been in meetings and I'm like, okay, that's gonna be on, but where is the item? And I'm not talking about some of the items that we get in board briefings a month or 2 months in advance. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about other things that just are not there because the deadline or something else, and that planning has to be done appropriately in order for me to be able to ask questions. If I can't ask questions, then I'm asked, do you have any questions? I don't know what to ask questions of. It's not in front of me. So that's the kind of thing that this 14 days would allow.
Okay, I have a question to the superintendent. Is that going to be a problem for you?
So the 14 days, just to review the process, it is about 8 weeks in advance. So the cabinet members present items to me, I clear them, and then they brief board members, which is in fact the item in itself. That email comes from Ms. Holmes, so the information is there available. As I present an item, my goal is to present the item as I see it, based on my recommendation to the board. And there will be opportunities where board member A thinks you should change this, or board member C thinks I should change that. I'm not looking for consensus to build a policy. I'm putting forward a recommendation that I think is best. So there will be opportunities where one board member thinks, oh, that's not a good idea. It's my recommendation. Vote no. And that's ultimately the authority that each individual board member has. The structure in itself, and those are the items that I present, the items in which the board has to approve. And we are extremely efficient. The 14 days, quite honestly, based on the schedule that we have created, isn't an issue. And I think Cabinet does one heck of a job of making sure that information is available. The structure that is in place and pushing out that information to make sure board members have it is extremely efficient. I think it is an absolute model. I think most would probably say, oh my gosh, 14 days is too much, but it is the absolute exception to the rule when we don't have that information. I just can't imagine what Cabinet is thinking, like, oh my gosh, what are they talking about? Because I know I present the information to Dr. Moore, I present it to the board. What are we talking about? It's not an issue.
And just to be clear, I agree with you, Dr. Moore. That's why it says in good faith. Yeah.
Okay, Dr. Jones.
This agenda came to us, one final thing on this, on August 19th. I opened up and see all the proposals, the policy changes in green. That's the first time I saw those policy changes after our discussion in green. Were they given to board members earlier than that? That's the first time I saw them in green, the changes, because I called you right away.
There was an initial conversation, I want to say 2 months ago. Then at the next workshop, there was the actual changes that were highlighted in green. If you were to go through and look at the changes that you're discussing now, the majority of them were the same changes that were discussed 2
The
weeks ago.
majority,
Not all.
right.
Not all. And there's shifts and changes based on the overall conversation.
Thank you
Now,
so much. Yeah. That's
I
all right.
agree, typically, we don't have this volume of changes based on the conversation. So that is to reflect on, but that motion was made and it didn't pass.
Thank you. That's fine.
Okay, anything else to this item?
Yeah, I would say if you pull up, July 22nd workshop, all of the backup items, all of these items are there in green, minus the few corrections from board feedback that were added or taken away as a result.
Anything else on this item?
No, ma'am.
Okay, we're going to move to the next one, which is 0169.1, which is the copy of public participation at board meetings. Who would like to speak to this item? It's, we're on 0169.1, public participation at board meetings.
Got it.
Which I find it's interesting that the title says copy. Anyway, okay. Anyone want to speak to this one?
I didn't have too much on that one. Maybe, hold on just a minute.
It's kind of the same thing,
I know,
except
it's-
for putting it
right.
into, you know, sometimes you have policies that are
Right.
written 3 different ways, but
I
they're
had
same
one on
kind
that one.
of policy.
That's why all of these were done at the same time, because they are all related. I actually think that it's ridiculous, I said it at our workshop, I think it's ridiculous that we have 4 different policies saying the same thing.
Public
We
participation.
really should have just one.
Madam Chair, I'm not sure, I'm sorry, Madam Chair. I'm not sure if this is the one, but, and it might even been on the speaker's phone, but they are related somewhat. If a consent item is moved to action item, and they come up and they say, I'd like to speak at action, is that still okay? A consent item moved to action, and they don't know it, you know.
Yeah, because by law, we have to allow people to speak to anything we vote on.
I just didn't see that on the speaker's phone.
Yeah,
I
that
just want to make
can't-
sure.
That can't be written against that because that's law.
Thank you.
We have to allow people to speak to an item that we vote on.
Didn't see that in there. I'm good there.
It's in the form, it's on the form. If you
Yeah.
look at the
Well,
attached.
we're not there yet, but if everybody's done with the participation at the board meeting?
Yep.
Okay.
Good.
Then let's go to 0164, notice of meetings. I'm fine with that one.
24 to 72, we look preferable to 72, but I'm fine with that one.
Anyone have a discussion on this?
That one?
No, I do have a recommendation. The only recommendation on the final form, are we on the form?
No.
Oh,
We are on 0164, copy of notice of meetings.
okay.
It's a shortened version of everything we've
Yeah,
been talking about.
It is.
Okay, we're good?
Yep.
All right. Moving on now to the form. I waited for the end for that. This is now talking about the speaker's form, which we have updated. I don't know, I've been on the board 6 years. We've updated this thing, I don't know how many times now. So, now we have a new update suggestion. Anybody like to speak to the items here?
I would.
Okay?
I just have one suggestion, and it seems pretty minor for Dr. Jacobs. On the bottom, you added a new form, or maybe that was me, a new form needs to be completed for each item. I'm wondering, because that was hard to see, like they go through the whole form and then they see that, can we put that on the top somewhere? Just move it towards somewhere, you know? This way, as they're filling it out, it's an easy, you know, you can read it before you actually fill it out.
So, you have any?
No, I'm good right
Okay.
now.
I do have a question. On the bottom, it says, any changes to speaker forms must align with board policies and procedures, must be presented to the board as a proposition, and must pass with a majority vote. Does that need to be on the form? Because that's what we're doing now.
The form is part of the policy. So if the form is part of the policy, it has to come, any changes to it have to come to us for a vote.
No, I know, but we have to put that statement on there?
I think we should. This form has been changed, just as you mentioned, so many times without board majority vote. It needs to be majority vote, not chair vote, not a chair.
I haven't changed it.
I'm not saying you, I'm just saying in general, it's changed so many times. It cannot be changed with the superintendent saying, let's change this. It cannot be changed with a chair saying, let's change this. It needs to come to the vote, especially since it is part of policy.
I'm fine with that, I just didn't know if we needed the comment at the bottom. Okay. I do have a concern, though, about, I see where you changed the wording on this, thank you, so that it wasn't confusing to somebody about, I can't speak this, but, or, in other words, I can only speak one time. But if you read that carefully, I think now they can see that you could speak to a couple of items, which is fine. I think before, the way we had it worded, it looked like you could only speak to one thing, and so I appreciate that. The obvious difference between this one and the one that we have now is the word about, the comment about speaking to a discussion item. Discussion items are not something that we vote on, so it's not by law that we have to have somebody speak to a discussion item. However, anytime we are limiting people's free speech or the opportunity to hear from the public about something that we might not have really understood, you know, I tend to pause. Now, I get where you don't want to have somebody that just comes up and grandstands, I get that. But, you know, I tend to worry a little bit about curbing somebody's First Amendment rights in any way. So that's the only thing I want to say about it. I don't want people to grandstand, but I also want people to be able to speak their mind about whatever they choose to speak their mind about, something that we might discuss. That's all.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I somewhat agree with that. We had a 4-to-1 vote not too long ago about board member matters, and it was brought up, First Amendments, and we could speak what we want to speak. So when we say that and use that as a board member, which is board approved, understood, 4-to-1, then we're saying to someone, what you say in discussion isn't important to us. We're not voting, 100% we're not voting, but even the discussion might have one board member say, hey, that's kind of a good idea, or no, I don't like it. I'm a little bit fearful saying we can't do that. And I agree with you on the grandstanding 100%. But we could have some citizens come up here and say, listen, this is a topic, don't know how you're going to vote, but can I say a few things? I think that's something we should think about.
Anyone else?
I will. I don't, I've said it before, I don't completely disagree. I do believe in everyone's First Amendment right, but we don't allow citizen comment during workshops. No one comes to discuss when we have discussion items during workshops. Discussion items on a board meeting, it's the same thing. No one knows exactly what we are discussing. So what is there to comment on until we've actually had the discussion? And so that's where that comes from. And it's not from me. It, obviously, the law says it is not a mandate for that particular purpose.
I'll add,
Yes, go ahead.
so, I mean, if we go back and look historically over the comments that occurred to these discussion items, I think the vast majority of them were pretty overwhelmingly wildly off topic, not related to the conversation, and significantly interfered with business. I think we'd all be happy to have the comments if they were related to the business. But unfortunately, somebody ruined it. I mean, eventually you gotta be able to conduct a meeting. And if somebody's going up there to make jokes, and show off, and it has absolutely nothing to do with the conversation, it's a sideshow and a circus, not a meeting.
And going back to the camera, that's exactly why I don't want the faces on the camera.
I hear that.
Yeah.
I don't think it changed much, though.
Well, I don't know, tonight we have that, so, that's part of why I brought that up, because it is our business meeting.
Just a thought, I mean, normally in discussion, we would not take any action, or formal action or non-formal action, but it might be a clause that you would want to add, that if a vote was taken, if somebody made a motion or decided to take an action, that.
Then they do get to.
And they do get to speak.
Right.
Okay, I'm fine with that. Yes, ma'am. We have somebody from the floor that would like to speak.
There is one thing that I would like to add, that during your last workshop, a copy of this speaker's forum was presented to you, in which the discussion item to indicate your preference to speak to a discussion item was removed. However, and I take full responsibility for this, up on the more of the narrative or bulleted part, it says on the third bullet, persons may speak for up to 3 minutes to each action agenda item during the action agenda and each board member discussion item.
Yeah, you got it there.
So if we are removing that option below to speak to a discussion item, then we need to strike that language to be consistent with what is listed below.
Or, I like what Mr. McDonald put forward, which is, he's saying that if the discussion item winds up to be a vote, then we would allow for someone to speak. So in that case, it almost would be like,
It's an action item.
well, it would also be like when we have, we conduct a separate meeting. What do we call that? When we stop the meeting, we gavel out and we have a, sorry?
Public hearing?
Thank you. So it's like the public hearing where anybody can come and speak at that time. They don't have to fill out a form. Could we put something into that effect? Where if a discussion item then becomes a vote,
You don't have to.
people don't have to go ahead, fill out a form because they can't read your mind. And I think that was part of some people in the past have had a concern about that, that I didn't know you were gonna vote on this. That's not fair. I couldn't speak to it. So if it becomes a vote, we're supposed to allow people to speak to it.
Yes.
I have a question. What item did we ever discuss that was immediately voted on?
There was one, a couple months ago.
What was that?
I don't remember, but I know there was one because somebody was complaining about, had they known we were gonna vote on it, they would have been able to speak.
And how long? We've been board members 6 years.
But we are setting a policy, so I think to be able to put that into policy, I like that idea, Mr. McDonald.
I do too.
To
I
put
actually-
it out there and say, treat it like we would, why can't I remember that term, because I'm tired.
Is it A20? But
But we can't treat it like that because
if
it's
it's
not
an,
that.
if it's an
not a
action
public hearing.
item, and the perfect example, Mr. McDonald is proffering an action item that has not been discussed.
Right.
If you move to vote, you have to hear from the public prior to that vote. So you would simply say, is there anyone from the audience
Yeah.
that would like to speak?
Easy.
And then, but that's already, should be, that's Robert's rules.
No, because I think if we put it into the policy, if I did that, a board member might say, you're not allowed to do that. But if we all agree that that's something that we need to hear somebody speaking because we're gonna vote on something, then that's appropriate.
Am I wrong? Because you have to hear from the community before you take an action. Am I right?
You are correct.
Yes.
I don't know that we can reflect it.
So if it's in discussion
I'm sorry, what did
and
she
we
say?
move to
If you
vote
are-
on it, then we're
If you are
considering
in
it an
discussion,
action.
it is discussion. And I would,
It is not action.
it is not action, and think of the limited amount of time you all have to have meaningful conversation. And that's sacred. And knowing all of you as well as I do, that is sacred to each and every single one of you. You want to have the board of this meeting to be about the body of work we're responsible for. I would encourage you to have unfiltered conversations with each other during that time and during workshop. And at the end of the day, you collect the information for discussion at the dais. Sometimes it's provided, but it's not required to be provided. We want board meetings to be represented a certain way. I would protect that time. And when there will be, and there will be, it'll be the exception based on that discussion. And I think it happened tonight. Ms. Rosario said, hey, I want to make a motion right now. Now, we've tabled it to the action item, but we could have said, all right, let's have that vote. You make the motion. Is there anybody from the public that would like to speak on this item? You get your 3 minutes. Kristen goes back to work, and she does the 3-minute thing, and then you've heard from the community, and you would have the vote. I'm not even sure what the vote was on at this point, but there's some Constitution. You would have that vote. I don't know that needs to be captured on the particular form. I just want to protect the board's time around the discussion and know whoever the chair is, when an action item is called and board members have the priority to say, I'm going to make a motion, because there's no protocol that's going to keep you from making a motion, then you have to hear from the community prior to taking a board decision.
Okay.
And that's actually part of my thought to that idea, is that without having some avenue for public discussion, it might hinder the opportunity for a spontaneous motion to come to the floor. Or you'd have to postpone for a month before you can act on something that was not necessarily a significant thing, but should have some public comment option.
Yes, Doc.
So do we need to change or put anything in writing? I mean.
You're not allowed to say that, Dr. Jacob.
So, I mean, I heard what Dr. Posca said. I agree. Everybody agreed, and I like Mr. McDonald's. So do we need to put that anywhere?
So I will tell you from revising this form and individuals who are accustomed to using this form,
Right.
the fact that we're removing discussion as an option, it may behoove us to clearly communicate that if a discussion item is moved to an action item, that the public will have an opportunity to provide comment prior to a vote being taken.
So I have a suggestion then.
That's simple.
Why don't we just have that comment written, or I state it, whoever the chair is states it at the beginning of the meeting?
Yeah.
I think your script currently is not board approved. So the difference between your script and the speaker's form is the revisions that you all are coming to consensus on, that board vote needs to take place to change the speaker's form.
So we need to put it in here, you're saying?
Correct. If you feel it, that would be my suggestion, because your script can be changed very easily, unlike the speaker's form.
So why not make it another bullet towards the top that says if an item is moved from discussion to a vote, then speakers
action.
at that time will be invited to speak?
Sure.
Okay. Okay, everybody okay with that?
Thank you, Mr. McDonald.
Okay.
Good to help.
Anything else on the speaker's form? We're good? Okay, that was our last item on that. So now I'm going to restate the item. It says approval to set public hearing date for the adoption of the revisions to School Board Policy 0165.1 agendas, 0164 notice of meetings, 0165 meetings, 0169.1 participation at board meetings, and the associated speakers form as amended. So I'm asking for a motion then to set the public hearing date. Could I get a motion?
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Mr. McDonald, and a second by Ms. Rosario. I'm not going to ask for any other discussion. I'm just going to ask for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes 5-0.
Thank you for the discussion, board members.
Okay, so we now have two other items. And seeing that those items are new action items that were not on the agenda, is there anyone that would like to speak to that? But before we do that, we need to know what the agenda item is. So I'm going to ask the board member that brought that forward to describe what it is, and then before board members discuss it and vote on it, we're going to invite the public to speak. Okay? So the first one is policy 2130. Mr. McDonald.
Thank you. Yeah, this is in response to a noticing that while we've done a tremendous job in virtually every area this year, and a lot to be celebrated, one of the items that we continue to struggle in, which is, I think, a very important one and a concern for the board and the community, is the achievement gap and the achievement overall of students who are struggling to catch up and to keep up with the rest of their class. And in 2130, we have a potential vehicle that at one point would step in and address that process and provide some input for that, towards that goal, but there is no date at which time that would ultimately come into play. And so the purpose of this is to react to those needs of those students who require assistance and to help them reach their potential and proactively focus on closing this persistent achievement gap. And the effect is the current policy initiates an oversight group at an unspecified future date. This amendment acts to immediately implement a committee of the board to undertake the oversight of the achievement gap and to make recommendations to this and related student learning challenges. The amendment would maintain focus upon achievement gap for all subgroups. And it specifies a committee that would be established with 6 members, 1 member appointed by each of the board members and 1 member appointed by the superintendent. They would be 1-year appointments with the option to renew for a 2nd year. The policy and related committee would remain in effect for 5 years, as it was with the original policy, from the time of implementation, with the option to renew the policy and the committee by the board. Okay. And so the motion, the ensuing action item would be to move this for a 30-day public review so it could be added to an upcoming board member business meeting for action.
Okay, before I invite the public to speak, I just have one question. Why didn't we get this in the workshop today?
It came up, actually, Dr. Moore and I discussed it, and it was under question. I was actually hoping to bring it up when we got to discussion, but after the written discussions came up, I was going to offer a discussion item, but you gavelled before I could say anything. So.
Are you talking about during workshop?
During workshop.
Yeah, we don't do a discussion item during workshops.
Yeah, I was thinking.
It's not part of the agenda.
I was thinking I'd have that opportunity.
I mean, we don't add them unless you do it at the beginning of the workshop with
Right.
the superintendent. Yeah, okay. All right, I'm going to invite the public to speak. It's Achievement Gap Oversight Work Group, Policy 2130. Since this wasn't an item on our agenda, is there anyone who wants to speak to it? Mr. Kenny? You have 3 minutes.
This sounds like something that's probably very good to do. I'm familiar when the achievement gap policy was initially passed. It brings in the plaintiff in a case that's currently being argued before a court in Miami, the deseg order. So until there's unitary status, this doesn't go into effect. That doesn't make any sense. A policy written for some arbitrary date in the future. So what you're saying here, if I understand it correctly, is that, hey, let's just implement this now and get to work on it. Let's get citizens involved. Let's make recommendations to the board. There's 6 people on this, as you said. I believe the other one had 8. So anything that would come forward out of recommendation would be a supermajority, because 3-3 tie obviously doesn't do anything. And also, it sounds to me like you've got 2-year, up to max of 2 years for citizens. I think that's good to hear, because you'll hear various voices in the community. It gives the board the ability to start this now, implement now, as opposed to, like I said, that arbitrary date. And it sounds like it's a very, I guess I don't know if it's parents or residents, but at this point, you know, if it's either or both, then you have residents from all over the county participating in this, and I just think that's a great idea. There's innovation to be found in a committee like that. There's not innovation in a committee that is set up with a plaintiff in a case after there's reaching of unitary status. Secondly, I would say this, shoot, it just escaped my head because it's been such a long night. I sat through this whole thing on public discussion. It'll come back to me. But, oh, this is what I wanted to say. When the achievement gap policy was passed with the book committee policy and a third one, I don't even remember the name. And the reason I don't even remember the name is because the only thing that was discussed in that package of policies, which was in August of 2022, was the book committee policy, because we wanted to get that correction at the time the book issue was huge and rules came down to develop book committees and review committees. And so that one took everything else, but all three were passed 5-0 because everyone was unanimously behind the book committee. The other two weren't discussed. I think this should be debated, obviously, based on its merits as it's presented here today, and even on its merits as it was presented back in 2022. Thank you very much.
Any other speakers? Mrs. Pippin?
Thank you for bringing this up, Mr. McDonald. I was actually reading the policy while Thomas was speaking. And so as far as the Superintendent's Achievement Gap Work Group, there is not any parents or citizens on that work group currently. The current policy says 4 members appointed by the IRC NAACP, 3 members appointed by the superintendent, and 1 by the school board representative. So I think it'll be good, since we're at 60 years with this desegregation order, to start maybe bringing in citizens and parents and bring their input. Sometimes getting an outside look in may make it better for the school district and look at new opportunities. So thank you.
Any other people that would like to speak in this massive audience? Ms. Noda Giacomo.
I just think it's a wonderful idea to, some of the stakeholders are the parents. And I think many times they've been disenfranchised. And I think this is a wonderful idea, especially to have each member of the board choose a person to be on the committee. So, and we can look at best practices around the state, what schools are succeeding in reading or phonics or whatever they're using, to elevate all of our students. So it sounds great. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So thank you for presenting the item. Any discussion? Dr. Jones?
This is a lot to take in. Didn't have time to really look at it during the meeting. We have a federal law regarding the Equity Committee and the work group. Dr. Moore, first of all, I want to hear from you as far as following federal law. Would this be an addition to it? How would it usurp the work group? The Equity Committee was changed to the work group. Ms. Rosario now serves on that committee. And when we say evidence-based recommendation for improvement to the board and you cross out the NAACP, I have some issues with that. This has been, you're right, we've been working hard on this for a while. Extremely hard. I worked with Dr. Shafty to write the achievement gap because we had to change some of the wording because of state law with equity. So I'm not ready to really talk about this because I have some concerns about crossing out NAACP. How does this work with the work group? There's a lot of information I'm going to have to read in detail.
So through the chair, my ability to respond will be limited because I only saw this 30 minutes prior to the workshop. It has not been reviewed for legal sufficiency. I think this establishes an absolutely awful precedent. You've just spent 2 hours talking about the appropriate amount of notice in having these conversations. So this is being thrown at you. Extremely, extremely fast, and as your superintendent, I can't provide you a recommendation on approving other than saying you spent about 2 hours saying one thing and you're proffering an item to do the opposite. Initial response, there was a significant amount of time and conversation and multiple times over the last 2 years in regards to this specific policy. It went through different name changes. It went through revisions. The intent of the policy way back when in '22 was to provide assurances to the federal court that when we obtain unitary status, that we will not walk away from the work. The research is clear. The research is clear. When a district obtains unitary status, it's within 3 to 5 years that it goes back to right where it was before. I think when you look at the purpose, the makeup of the committee, it's too much, too fast. Are there opportunities to improve the policy? Probably, based on the conversation. But as I work for the board proper, I think the most appropriate thing to do is to put this on a workshop, digest it, and have meaningful conversation. And there could be, I'm sure there could be opportunities to enhance the policy itself. But I can't support this.
Still have the floor?
Yes.
Yeah. Ms. Shattuck, may I have your opinion again? There's too many things on here that really concern me. And I'm looking under board commitment, and why were certain words crossed out? Disparities, equitable, inclusive, I know why those were crossed out. But I've got a real issue with this on doing something, again, that the Equity Committee, now called the work group, is working on. And even though I'm not on that committee anymore, I'll certainly follow it, because we, as all board members, care, talk about closing the gap. But I've got some real issues, especially dealing with our court order, federal court order. Your concerns or questions or comments?
Thank you. Through the chair, I would echo the superintendent's comments in that I haven't seen this until right this moment on the dais, so I have not had a chance to review it. And it is, a best practice in order to provide not just everybody here on the dais, the board members, the opportunity to review things in advance, but also we provide our agendas 7 days in advance for the public. There's a few people here from the public still to provide public comment, but so that the public can also be on notice and provide any public comment. So I would say that I would echo that it would make sense to have more opportunity to digest it, put it on a workshop prior to taking any action on it. I can't really give a legal opinion on it at this point, but I can review it and come back with one.
Yeah, I am. I know.
Thanks.
Okay. All right. Dr. Pascal, you want to speak?
Yeah, I mean, I would say changing this policy would be considered a very, I would say, big thing for the community that would require notice and discussion. So we can't do anything tonight. But, I think if you want to have a discussion about it, I think it's something that warrants discussion. Then I think we should put it on a superintendent's workshop. We should look at it. And then get the public's opinion and see if there are any changes we want to make and what those would be.
I'm going to speak unless Ms. Versario wants to.
You can go.
Okay. Thank you. So this is exactly why board members are asked to put things on the agenda 7 days in advance, because when it's on the agenda, even if it's on a board workshop, and something like this was on the board workshop, that would bring people out to the meeting that really care about this. And it hits home with a great population in our community that we have worked very hard to get to a point where we're working on unitary status to happen. So this is a very sensitive subject for our community. It's something that's been, I guess, since the 50s that we've been working on this, and that Achievement Gap Oversight Work Group really was our answer to doing what the judge is asking that we have to do. And so the judge is saying that right now we have a work group that has to come together, and that work group by the judge's standard has to be a commitment of so many people from one side, so many people from the other side. That's why that number was there. Now, this is moving forward. So it's not what the judge is saying we have to do. It's what the commitment from this dais was to say to the judge, we hear you. We're not going to be the district that falls back. We're going to be the district that moves forward. And so that's why that was written that way. And you weren't on the dais before when this was written, so you probably don't know the background of that part. But this part is kind of looking at, and it was, I will say Doc spearheaded this, and she went with a group to really dive into making sure that this didn't ripple any waves in what we already were doing to move forward with the lawsuit. And so I would not want to do anything haphazardly. We need to take this very, very carefully. That's why I asked why it wasn't on the workshop, because had it been put on the workshop and somebody had seen that on the agenda, they might have come to our workshop and then they might have spoken tonight at citizen input. Because of that, they didn't get the opportunity to do that. Now, I know you're saying you wanted to vote on it tonight. To me, an action item, and I remember this training when I went to new board member training, an action item that's put on the agenda for that night really is more like an emergency item. To me, since the 50s, this isn't an emergency. So it is something that I think we should look at again. And obviously, we should look at this, but I don't think it's something I feel comfortable voting on tonight for this. Okay? Ms. Rosario?
Yeah, and putting items on an action agenda the night of has nothing to do with emergency. We have every right. You can look at page, I think it's page 35, section on agenda in the Sunshine Manual. We are not prohibited at all.
I didn't say you were prohibited. I said
Let me
it's-
finish what I'm saying, please. I have the floor. We are
She's
not
saying what I didn't
prohibited
say.
at all to add any items to the agenda. And it certainly doesn't say anything about you typically should or could add items that are for emergency purposes. That's not what it says. Now, that said, I read what is here. I think it's fine, based on what I read. I've always had an issue with, and I tried changing this, gosh, I don't even know, maybe a year ago, only because I have an issue with creating a policy based on active litigation. And so when this policy was first created, it had to be pulled and then rewritten, or, when it was first recommended, it had to be pulled and rewritten a couple of times, actually. I just don't believe that we should have a policy based on litigation. I've never believed that at all. I think that and I've said, we should have a policy on the achievement gap, and allow the superintendent to do that work now, but not just for one group of students, for everybody, everyone, every subgroup of students, there is a gap somehow or another, and he is responsible for ensuring that that gap closes. So I do understand having it vetted for legal sufficiency. I do agree with that. I do believe in that. I think that it's very important. But I don't believe that having this policy written the way that it currently is going to make any difference in our legal, in what is required of us for the equity work group. The equity work group is separate and apart from this policy. The equity work group, we are bound to do the work of the desegregation order and everything else by court order, no matter what policy we have written in place. I mean, all of our policies would support the work to raise academic achievement and opportunities for students who are Black and brown. So, I mean, I don't believe that this, I never did believe that this policy would have made a difference or, when we went to court. I just didn't. Dr. Moore knows that. It's not something, I just didn't think that it was written in a way that's going to make a difference. What's going to make a difference is the final outcomes, the numbers that show that the achievement has actually, that the gap has actually closed. What's going to make a difference is that we actually show the proof and the data that we are hiring Black and brown teachers appropriate to the percentage that that is required of us in the desegregation order. What's going to make a difference is that we actually accomplish all of the things that the desegregation order tells us to accomplish. That's the data that's going to make a difference. This policy is not going to make that difference. And we can actually create a resolution, not a proclamation, but we can create a resolution that says that we are committed to the work of the desegregation order, and we can create anything else. I just do not believe this policy, again, would make a difference in that way. Now, that said, since we are in discussion, I do like the idea of establishing an achievement gap oversight an achievement gap oversight committee. The way that I read this, it's a general one, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. McDonald. It seems like it's just a general one that addresses achievement gaps in student performance overall for all of our students in English language arts, mathematics, social studies, science, and for graduation and dropout rates. It does state that the board is committed, which isn't very different from what was already in there, that the board is committed to measure and maintain high expectations for all students and to eliminate persistent underachievement in the academic performance of individual student subgroups. Again, this is work that we're currently doing anyway. The next item that I see highlighted states achievement gaps, which makes sense to take out disparities and put in achievement gaps because that's what the policy is. It's an achievement gap policy. Same thing with the the second and the third bullet. The fourth bullet states monitor data to make recommendations to the board regarding any identified needs for additional resources or human capital to enhance the outcomes that close the overall achievement gap in each state assessed subject. That's what we should be doing anyway. And then this last part looks like the Achievement Gap Oversight Committee would be made up of one Indian River resident appointed by each school board member, totaling 5, and 1 member appointed by the superintendent. The committee will make recommendations on how to best support student subgroups and historically underserved communities in the district. Seems fine to me, based on that alone. And as I read that, I'm thinking, again, this committee, the way I understand it, this committee is not replacing the equity work group, which is required of us. You're recommending that we have 2 separate things, that we continue the work of the equity work group, which is under a desegregation order requirement, and have this separate and apart.
Correct.
Okay. And then the policy duration shall remain in effect for 5 years from implementation. That's one thing that I would say, there shouldn't be a policy duration. This should be for always. I think we should always be doing this work. I don't believe that it should be limited to a particular time frame. The work group in the original desegregation order, the order actually says that we would continue the work if we were to reach full unitary status, and I don't have it in front of me. If we were to reach full unitary status, we are committed, we are required to continue that work for 5 years after we reach unitary status. But in this particular case, since it's a generic, since you're recommending a generic achievement gap oversight committee, I don't see why we would have any duration on that.
The original there.
I will say that But I do agree in legal sufficiency. I do believe that the attorney would have to, take a look at it and make sure that it's well vetted that way. So I see you were going to
So
speak.
I'm waiting
Sorry.
for everyone to speak, and I get my chance.
Oh, well, you present the item and then board members discuss it, and then,
Right.
like me, you wait until the end.
So I'm waiting to the end, which I'm doing.
He's done. We're
So,
done.
Doc, you had one more comment?
Yeah, I just want to reiterate a couple things here. Again, just seeing this now, I think that's doing a disservice to our board and to our public. This is a huge action item, huge. Public needed to know that we were going to discuss it, and we cannot go against what we have just said in this meeting. I been a part of this since 2021, and I know the joint plan almost by heart. That is a federal court order with 10 components. Obviously, we have partial unitary status on 3 components. We're working very hard on the other ones. Again, not a member of that committee again, but I think we're close on a couple others. The fact that, and I know this is separate from the work group, that you cross out the NAACP is absolutely wrong. This achievement gap policy was put in, and I understand it goes into effect, which was crossed out here, once the unitary status happens. And one of the reasons in working on this policy with Dr. Shafty and Dr. Moore, and obviously including getting input, was that once we do achieve unitary status, we won't put it on a shelf. I don't know the numbers now, but those who have achieved unitary status, those who have not, but there have been new court law because they just put it on the shelf and they were not looking at the data. We've got a huge job in front of us, and just a left turn that I think it says to the public and to the school board, we're just going to change this, nobody's here to talk about it, and it's absolutely wrong. I have been to court in Miami for 2 or 3 times. That judge is very clear on her expectations of the 10 components of the joint plan, the 2018 joint plan. To me, this is doing a tangent to it. I agree with Dr. Posca saying, okay, we've got to look at this. We just can't throw it out there. This is something we really, really must look at. And I would like to caution the board, if approving this tonight, there will be an issue because we have not discussed it with our families. We have not discussed it with our community, and I'm talking right now about Gifford. Just going to throw that out there and then cross out the NAACP, cross out everything else about the court order document having been fulfilled. This is a gotcha. We can't do it.
Okay, Mr. McDonald.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so it's worth noting and understanding that from a legal standpoint, the framework of the original policy was used largely to help avoid any kind of legal issues because it follows that same legal pattern. So the fact that it was originally an addendum to the desegregation order does not necessarily apply to it at this point because the whole purpose of this action would be to take that pending committee or work group, whatever, at such time when it comes into play, take that and put that into play now. Recognize that there's needs now and that that committee could be doing good work now and up until the time when the order is rescinded. And not only do we not need to make the case that we would continue, but we can make the case that we have already proactively taken steps to be addressing this possibly several years before that status is changed. So changing the words within it to meet the particular objective at this point in time does not speak to the desegregation order, but rather it speaks to using that kind of framework and using this as a current day tool to pursue that objective for the achievement gap, but for the achievement gap for everyone, and have that in place now rather than have it in place sometime in the distant future. Having it a proactive tool to be used to accomplish those good things now, rather than having an addendum as a tail to the desegregation order for the purposes of, you know, placating or otherwise making the judge happy. I would think that if this process did that job well, sometime in the future, that it would do it much better now because it would start now.
Okay.
Oh, and the other thing, just so it's not confused, this is not a proposal to vote on the
You brought
policy.
it to action. It is a vote.
But it's a vote to place it before, for public comment.
So you're asking for a vote to place it to public comment?
Yes, because
Comment?
Public hearing.
a public hearing, yes, because it does deserve and needs that kind of
Yes, it does.
attention.
Okay, so first of all, I have a really hard time with this not being brought to a workshop first, then given to our attorney to make sure an attorney does the work, not a board member doing the work of rewriting policy. We keep getting into that and into that and into that, and we don't have law degrees. So I have a hard time with that. I also have a very hard time with putting lines through anything referencing the NAACP and all the work that's been done on the joint plan. I really have a hard time with that. I think that sends a really bad message. And is that going to be your legacy? Is that what you want for your legacy?
Well, and again, the intent is to establish something now under the framework that existed, but to take that action now. It's not striking out the NAACP, who we continue to be in litigation with. It's using that idea and that concept and that framework to proactively and immediately take some action and do some good things in the community and establish that involvement of the whole community. So it's not a striking out of them. It is using that framework to create something productive now.
Can I add something?
I have a suggestion.
Okay, Dr. Posca?
Yeah, I'll just. So if I can paraphrase, because we're hearing about all this is an active conversation. What you're saying is, I mean, we're not actually doing this yet, obviously. This is, once we get unitary status, this work group would then, according to this policy, come about, and it would start doing its job. What you're saying is, why wait for unitary status? Let's just start doing the work now. And I don't know that I can disagree with that sentiment, but I do think it warrants going to workshop and doing this the right way.
I have a suggestion.
So I would actually like to propose an amendment to your motion. And the amendment I'd like to propose is that instead of putting this out for public, to the public first, I think that I'd like to propose that we bring this to the next workshop.
I agree with that.
That's my proposal to the amendment. So I'd like to make a motion to that.
Wait, I'm sorry.
I'm making a motion to amend his motion.
Did you make a motion?
Yeah, he brought up, he
Okay.
brought up a motion.
You can comment on our motion.
Yeah.
Nice. So this is an amendment to the motion. I'm going to make an amendment that we bring this item to the next workshop. Could I get a second? Okay, that dies for a second. So now we have the main motion on the floor?
Could it be repeated?
Yes, please repeat it.
I did. I had a suggestion for you.
Do you want to make an amendment?
You want to make the suggestion?
No, I want to make I want to make a comment first.
Okay.
Okay, the suggestion that I had, and I don't know if you want to reword your motion or whatever, but it doesn't appear that you have consensus. So if you look at our calendar, you can give this, or, to
Ms. Shattuck, to the superintendent and Ms. Shattuck today. They'll have plenty of time to vet it for legal sufficiency, bring it back to us with legal feedback on the 9th, which is a workshop.
Didn't I just make that motion?
And then, it would come back to us after that workshop and feedback on the 23rd business meeting, giving the public time to talk about it, to giving the public time to have public input. That would cover all those boxes in there.
So I just made that amendment to that motion, and it died. So now it's gone.
You made an amendment for just the workshop alone. That's
Right,
not what I suggested.
I brought it to say, bring it back to the next workshop. That means that he meets with the
Okay, all right,
attorney,
let's move
does
on.
all that.
Okay.
I didn't need to put all that into the
Okay,
amendment.
okay.
All I asked for is a
That was
motion.
my suggestion. I don't know if you
I
want
would offer that amendment with the provision to take it to the next workshop with the provision of, after that, bringing it to the public and posting it on the agenda for the following business meeting.
Which is the way it works.
Right.
Okay.
I'll make that
So you're amending the amendment to the motion?
correct.
Okay. State your amendment to the motion.
The amendment to the motion is to, instead of making the motion to put it to public, to amend it so that this will be placed at the next workshop, discussed, put into public comment, and then added to an agenda to the following business meeting.
Good.
Can I get a second on the motion?
Second.
Discussion, please.
Yes, go ahead.
A lot of things have just changed the last
I'm
10
sorry,
minutes.
do we discuss once a second is done?
For an amendment?
This is, I'm
Yes,
for,
for amendment, you can?
yeah, okay.
Yes. Thank you.
Just wondering.
Correct.
I thought so. But it is late. Again, just having this before us, I know we do an amendment to the amendment to look at this at workshop and policy, and then present it to the public, and the public will have I just want to make sure this is legally vetted, no matter what we do. But just in discussion, I think we're getting to real muddy waters with this, especially with our work group, with the DSEG order, with the federal court order, with being fine-tuned on that joint plan with the judge the last time I was there. I just think that we are getting into some real legal issues. And more than anything, I just don't think we are, the workshop, the public can't speak. Yes, they can speak at public input after we've got it all done. I think we're doing this backwards. I disagree with any of the amendments. That's my discussion.
Okay, so I'd like to add a discussion part to this too. Just so you know that if this comes up to the next workshop and then it's voted on at that business meeting that night, the vote would be to
I know.
move.
Yes, ma'am.
That night would be a business meeting.
No,
So-
it isn't.
Okay, so the next business meeting, whenever it's on the next business meeting, the vote wouldn't be to approve it. The vote would be to put it
Public
out
hearing.
for a public hearing, just so you know.
You'd have to, yes.
Okay. Trying to clarify your amendment.
That's sort of the timing
Yeah.
I've been struggling with.
I'm trying to clarify your amendment so you understand the process.
Mhm.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Wait. Dr.
No, we're good.
Oh, okay.
You had a
All
comment?
those in favor say,
I think Dr. Moore had a comment.
Dr. Moore.
You will workshop it September 9th. You will send it, review and discuss, and possibly approve to send it to public hearing at the September board meeting. And if there's sufficient time, and there is not, it would come back for board approval in November.
Okay.
Well, wait.
Correct? Because there's,
Wait a minute. I have one thing that you did not include, Dr. Moore, was that he wants it vetted for legal sufficiency before the workshop. Not it comes to the workshop and then it's vetted for legal sufficiency. What was clear is that he wants it vetted for legal sufficiency before the 9th. It comes to us with that vetting and recommendation and review on the 9th workshop, and then goes to the business meeting. So there shouldn't be, well, if it doesn't pass on the, obviously, if anything doesn't pass, it goes to the next business meeting.
Nothing can pass at a workshop. You would have to approve.
Business meeting.
Business
If
meeting.
it doesn't pass at the next business meeting, it goes to the very next business meeting, or whatever.
It passes to go to,
Workshop.
out to a public, to,
Public notice.
public notice. Thank you.
Has to go through 2 business.
So it can't be voted on for 2 months.
Yeah.
That's what he's trying to explain.
Correct.
Okay, it's getting late. So, anything else? Can I call for the vote?
Go for it.
All right.
As long as we discuss it.
I'm calling for the vote for the amendment of the second amendment to bring it to the workshop, like the first amendment, but with a comment for the next business meeting after that. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay.
Nay.
It passes 3-2. All right, moving on to the last new action item, which is,
I'm sorry, you still have to vote on the underlying motion.
oh, thank you.
When you vote
You're
on the
right, because that was the second amendment. So going back to the underlying motion. So the first motion was the original motion. Would you like to withdraw that motion, since we voted on the amendment, and make it as the amended motion? Yes. Okay. So we can vote on that, we withdraw it and accept the amended motion, correct?
Yes, you can do that.
Okay.
Also, if you voted on the motion, it would be as amended, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
So as amended. All right, so can I get a motion to vote on the motion as amended?
I move that.
Okay. A second?
Second. Wait, this is
We have to
for-
vote on the original motion.
The original motion.
The original motion is to pass it
To put it in the work group as we adjusted, to put it. send
as
to the work group.
amended, as amended.
And amended.
Yes. I'll
As
second.
amended. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Nay. Passes 3-2. All right. Moving on. New action item on the Constitution. Mrs. Rosario brought this item. Before you discuss it, Mrs. Rosario, just say that the motion that you would like to make.
I make a motion. Let me get this together here. I make a motion, the district place the appropriate disclaimer, if needed, on the 917 Society constitutional booklets and distribute one booklet to all 8th graders prior to September 11th of 2024.
Okay. So we have anyone that would like to speak to
Second.
this?
Oh.
Sorry,
No, no,
we have to allow speakers. We haven't made the
Yeah.
motion yet. Anybody would like to speak? Yes, ma'am. Please come to the microphone, state your name.
My name is Susie. Yes, you can hear me. We're not a big room at this point. My name is Susie Stoller. I believe in the Constitution. I think it's amazingly important, and I think all kids should understand it. But I believe it's a very complex document, and I believe handing every 8th grader a piece of paper with the Constitution on it, having been a school social worker and a classroom teacher for many, many years, I can't imagine that that would go very far in terms of students reading it. I think students need to study the Constitution. I think they need to understand it. And again, I believe it's a very complex document. And I think that the district has, as part of the curriculum, Constitution. At that point, it seems appropriate for students to be given a Constitution, to be able to become familiar with it, and to be able to discuss it and understand it. And so I believe Dr. Moore was saying that he wanted to be able to review it and think about it before it was a recommendation, and I'd like to support that we leave it in the hands of the superintendent. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Anybody from the audience? Yes, sir.
Joe LaGuardia. First
I'm
of
sorry,
all,
say your name again.
Joe LaGuardia.
Thank
Joe
you, Joe.
LaGuardia. I've read the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, which is very different from the document you almost passed without allowing any of us to read at all. It speaks to the wisdom of elections in which people who know this community, who have lived in this community for a long time, who know people who have been invested in shaping public education for a long time, are chosen over those who have no longevity with our community. It's also important to know that a lot of the policies and decisions that are made here are done so not simply to avoid litigation, but because lives are at stake and lives are invested and people are invested, especially our neighbors who have worked at some of these policies for a very long time. And I'm very grateful that you, first of all, decided to put off, whatever policy change you're going to try to pull over on the county against the wishes of your own superintendent and attorney, because the blood was boiling back there that we had no access to this document, knowing that so many people have put in so much time, and some who have not spent a long time in our community have put forth a motion. With that said, I've looked at the book because I know as an educator myself that sometimes the Constitution and these little booklets with the Constitution don't just have the Constitution in them. Sometimes they have prefaces and introductions that go off the charts, and sometimes they can be very ideological and very political. So thank you for a copy. I looked at it. It has simply the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. No prefaces, no introductions, and I appreciate that. And for that reason, I think that would be great for the school board to support putting that in the hands of 8th graders who I think are wise enough to read it and to understand it. On Constitution Day, I think it would be a wonderful gesture in our community. I think it would honor all of our neighbors and students to put that in the hands of students on that day. So I appreciate that. And I appreciate what you all do, regardless of some of the comments and nays and yays and woes and no's out there. I've been coming for 8 months, and it's nice to actually talk about education, get through the minutia. And with that, I would recommend not only putting hands of the constitutions in students in 8th grade, but also perhaps picking up a copy of Robert's Rules of Order. I think you all should know that before serving. Thank you.
Ms. Pippin?
So this will be the 3rd year that we are attempting to get these free books donated to the schools. Like Mr. Kenny said previously, Mr. Barefoot said that these were political. Second time around, there was concerns about the QR code. Again, Thomas Kenny brought this up, but if you're flipping through your book, when you flip through, it's the Constitution, and then towards the end, there is the Declaration of Independence. It's the same thing that our children are taught in 8th grade civics. That's why the 917 Society does this. This is all they do. They don't do anything else politically. They don't back candidates. They don't do anything like that. The only thing that they do is get the money to send these to schools across the country, and Moms for Liberty and many other parental rights organizations are the ones that are just helping these get out because they're based out of Tennessee and not Florida. So some stats for 2 years ago, we were the only school district in Florida that denied these to students. Last year, we were one of 2 that denied it to students, and the other district that denied it was because they already had these going to students from Defending Parental Education. It was another organization that had already given the students out, so Moms for Liberty did not give it to students. But we were the only district that didn't allow. And then all of the private, charter, and homeschooling do take these. So we delivered the past couple of years so they didn't get wasted from IRCEA and Fort Pierce to, again, St. Edward's, Masters Academy, all of these schools took them, and then the homeschools co-ops took the remaining that were not donated to the public schools here in Indian River County. So 4 middle schools, the public schools were the only ones that did not receive these. So I urge you to take a look at the QR code. You can look at it right now on your phone. It's super easy. Again, having the print version, having the Spanish version, being inclusive. There is nothing with Moms for Liberty on this. There's nothing with any other organization's information on it. Yes, the ones that you got do have a sticker in it. Those were the sample ones that we have been given out to other school districts. When we donate them, they will not have the sticker in the inside. Again, these are, I didn't open the boxes that were donated to us yet with anticipation to be able to donate them to the public schools. And then again, you have my word, Dr. Moore has my word that, again, these were samples that we had from last year that we donated to the other charter schools. That's why it had our information in it. But the ones that would be going to the public schools would not have any other information except for what you have in your hand minus the sticker. So thank you for your time.
Okay. Anyone else? Seeing none? All right. Yes, Dr. Moore.
The issue is not the Declaration of Independence, it's not the Constitution, and it's not this board or this staff's willingness to support this body of work. I think we do it probably better than most, if not the absolute best, in terms of the plethora of activities and support that we provided to teach these extremely important documents. It is the alignment to policy. Policy 9700.01, which, Ms. Shatta, can you read the name of that policy? We're going to tag team it here.
Yes, your policy 97.01 is advertising and commercial activities / messages and distribution and or posting of materials on school property or in the virtual backpack.
So within that policy, the disclaimer is part 1, and then the B, as Ms. Pippin was saying, the QR code, which was the issue last year. And I am not in a position tonight to tell you what that QR code leads to or what it takes you to, where your board policy prohibits you from providing information that is political in nature. I don't know if it is or if it's not. I don't know if the QR code has changed, and that's why I simply made the statement. As the superintendent, Mr. Kenny, I will meet and discuss with you and give the board every assurance that we adhere to policy. Dr. Jacobs, what information did I leave out?
I think you covered everything, and you're exactly right on. It was the QR code that led to numerous links, some of them which included political material.
So I cannot give the board any assurances that a vote of doing this without reviewing of that QR code would allow you to violate your own policy.
Okay, yes, Dr. Mosca.
So I think it's interesting that we were the only district, I guess, that didn't adopt it. I will say, though, I think there's a simple fix for this problem. Let's put a sticker over the QR code, and let's hand out the books. Let's move on. I don't like the idea of handing out QR codes to kids, because you can change the data that they're going to ultimately go to. In fact, there's been school districts that had teachers handing out safe space type QR codes, and it actually turned into sex chats between adults and children. So I don't think we should hand out QR codes to kids in general. I think a real simple fix is let's hand out the pocket constitutions, let's cover the QR code.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I think every board member should take out your phone and go to the QR code. What you will see, it's not controversial, what you will see is the United States Constitution. You will see Article 1, Article 2, Article 3, Article 4, Article 5, Article 6, Article 7. You will see Amendments 1 through 10 as the Bill of Rights, Amendments 11 through 27. You will see about the 917 Society, no big deal. you will see every 8th grader needs a personal copy, the Declaration of Independence, Naturalization Oath of Allegiance, and that's it. There is no other information here. So, yeah, if that is an issue, cover the QR code. It really doesn't matter. But we shouldn't, this is not rocket science. We just need to give the kids the Constitution.
All right, so just,
Wait.
I'm just trying to go home. Sorry. I can't amend it, but amend it to say to cover the, if there is information in the QR code, and I think Dr. Posca raises a good point, that code can change, or the content behind it changes whatever. So we can put our disclaimer on it,
Something we
still
passed
review
out,
it.
and that's
Yeah.
not good.
Yeah.
We could change anything.
Okay, so anybody else have a comment?
Well, I'm looking through the QR code. There's a lot of information. I can't get through it all. Dr. Moore, did you just suggest that we wait till we look through this, or are we going with what Dr. Posca said, uncovering it?
I'll be honest, if this was left to my own devices, I think I would have made the exact same I'm not trying to steal your idea, but made the exact same recommendation, have the time to put the disclaimer, and this would be done. So it addresses, without a full-on review, but it addresses the concerns, not that I have, but the concerns of adhering to your policies.
Anyone else?
No, I mean, that makes reasonable sense. Obviously, the things that the QR code links to are not an issue, but since there is always that risk, technological risk, and I don't think that distributing that with the sticker is an issue, since they're already putting stickers on them for other schools. I think that taking that precaution is a wise one, and then it would get us over the hump to distribute these.
Yeah, did you say that last year you passed out constitutions to the kids?
Yes, we did pass out constitutions. We had, through Ms. Basura's office, they created ones, because at the end of the day, the intent was to make sure that the document was provided. So since we couldn't clear the content within the QR code, and I'm talking about last year's, not this year's, don't know what's in this year's yet, that was the way to provide the information, so.
Okay. Yeah, I'm fine. I was thinking of, Xing that out yourself, so when you said sticker, I like that even better, as long as I can't peel the sticker off. Because anytime, even with a website, people can change it and make it into something that it shouldn't be. And so that's okay, that's not okay, but if somebody does that on their own, that's not our problem. But if we're passing them out and that happens, now it's our problem. So I agree with you. I think we got to be careful what we pass out. Just like anything else somebody brings to the schools and they want to have it passed out, we got to be careful what anybody is advertising, because once we allow that to be passed out to kids, that's part of what we're agreeing to. And so I'm with you. I'm okay with it. I want kids to see the Constitution, but I agree with you that we need to cover this.
We will.
Okay. So would you like to amend the motion?
No. Why would I amend it?
To make it so
No.
that the QR code is covered?
He could just do it. It says right here that he would place the appropriate disclaimer if needed on it. So where he places it doesn't matter to me.
Okay, your motion is the district places disclaimers needed and distribute to all 8th graders
I'll
prior
reread it. I'll reread it. My motion is, I make a motion, the district place the appropriate disclaimer, if needed, on the 917 Society constitutional booklets and distribute one booklet to all 8th graders prior to September 11th, 2024.
But in my mind, putting a sticker over is not a disclaimer. That is something a little
Place the
different.
appropriate disclaimer. He's going to put the disclaimer on as the sticker on the.
I believe the disclaimer is a stamp, correct?
Stamp might be better to block it out.
So any materials we distribute within our virtual backpack generally, because that's where most of the materials go, any flyers, we include a district disclaimer on there. So this would be twofold. It would be including the district disclaimer,
Right.
and then also adding the sticker over the QR code for the concerns that have been stated by board members.
So the disclaimer is a stamp or a sticker?
It is, we do not have a stamp. Generally, our materials are all placed in the virtual backpack, so they are electronic. So we don't have a stamp, so a sticker would have to be created, correct?
Look at this team. Go ahead.
Precedent through the chair is the person donating the material. For example, we have an organization that donates kindergarten books. They have published that disclaimer in the material. So they had the responsibility of distribution does not imply endorsement by the SDIRC.
I would prefer the district do it because the district knows exactly what to say.
It's that statement.
So we widely publicize the disclaimer on our website for any organizations that request to distribute materials. It very clearly says what language needs to be on those materials, and individuals are asked to add those to any materials that they would like the district to distribute, because we're not only processing all those materials, reviewing all those materials, writing letters of approval for those materials, and how those materials will be distributed as well.
So in other words, you're saying whoever donates the material needs to put the disclaimer on there? Okay. So it's not some, that's why I'm asking you to,
I
would you
understand
like
now.
to amend your
Yeah.
motion to say the sticker on there?
Yeah, hold on. And okay. I have a parliamentary question for Mrs. Shattuck. My original motion did not have a second. So it didn't essentially pass with a second? So do I need to still amend it? I don't believe I need to amend it. I can just state a new motion, correct?
That's correct. There was no second on that motion, so you could just restate a new
Okay.
motion.
All right, I will restate my motion. I make a motion, the district place the appropriate disclaimer if needed, and cover the QR code with a sticker on the 917 Society Constitutional books, and distribute one booklet to all 8th grade students prior to September 11th.
So you're saying the district needs to do the disclaimer, not the people donating it like everybody else?
Yeah, that's my motion.
Okay. Second?
Second.
Question?
Yes, go ahead.
So what Dr. Shafty just said and Dr. Jacobs just said, where it should be the person giving us that, is that in, where do you read that? Where is that?
I'll have to look in the policy.
It is policy, so we'd be breaking policy.
Our virtual backpack, generally this has to do with virtual backpack,
Right.
but Dr. Shafty might be able to talk better to the donated materials. It is 1,100 eighth graders that we would be asking staff to add all of this, so we would need to shift around their responsibilities in order to comply with this request.
If you are looking at your current policy, 9700.01, under the subsection procedures for distribution of materials on school property, it has a specific clause in there that the requester must first submit the materials with A, B, C, D, E, and F. To include the district disclaimer must be on the material distributed, whether posted in the virtual backpack. So it's the physical material or through a virtual backpack. That's how the current policy reads. The requester must submit the materials.
But here's the thing, the
She
requester
has the
submitted it
floor
already.
right now. Ms. Rosario, she has the floor, because we're in discussion. You presented the item, so now the other board members get to speak.
Yeah, I'm willing to work with this, but I don't want to violate policy.
Dr. Pasca? Anything? Okay, I agree with you. If we have a policy, why do we keep breaking our policies? Just because we can? We work really hard to develop policy and send it to attorneys and then vote on it and put it out there for everybody to talk about. And then we can, on a whim, break our policy just on the dais. I agree with you. If we have a policy, we just need to, I'm okay with doing this. I just want to make sure we do it right.
To the chair.
And follow policy. Yes, sir.
Since the donor is here, could we query them to
Yeah.
see if there's any concern with them being able to provide that?
Do we do that with anybody else?
You can. You can.
We
You
can do whatever we
have
want.
an opportunity.
You're talking right now.
Yeah, I'm saying, since they're here, we can confirm with them that that's not a problem and that they could apply the required or the
Staff,
desired
but-
sticker and disclaimer and confirm that without having to speculate.
Okay.
Is that reasonable?
Question?
Ms. Pippin, do you want to come and answer that question? That's all you need to say, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, you can do it.
Okay.
Okay. Do you want
Okay.
to amend your
Yes.
motion?
Well, it didn't,
Yeah, we don't,
Another
yeah, you
second.
had a second.
Oh, yes, we go.
we got a second? Oh,
Yes,
we
you
did
did.
get a second. Okay. I'll amend my motion. The amended motion is I make a motion, the district place the appropriate disclaimer, if needed, on the 917 Society constitutional booklets.
The district?
Sorry, let me go back. You said you had a stamp, correct?
We do not have a stamp.
You do not have a stamp. It was the electronic.
We have we have the language
Sorry.
electronically that people
For
add
the-
to
For
their.
the donors to be able to add it on.
Correct, and it
Okay.
is required, it's not if necessary, it's required.
Okay, gotcha. All right, so I make a motion that, I'm amending my first motion. I make a motion, the district distribute the 917 Society constitutional booklets and distribute. Let me take that off. I make a motion, the district distribute the 917 Society constitutional booklets to all eighth graders prior to September 11th, 2024.
So, Dr.
And-
Shat,
And those,
Hold on,
apart from,
she's not done. Go ahead.
no,
apart from the motion, though, those pending distribution to the district with the disclaimer and the sticker.
Okay, has to have that on there, though.
Right.
The
Cover-
sticker, no, I mean in your motion. You need to add that.
Dr. Shafty?
Sorry, just to help you with your motion, your current policy says it can be distributed in one of two ways, in the virtual backpack or the school lobby. That's the current language in the policy.
That's not, but that's not what the motion is for eighth graders. So we have an issue there. It's not going to go in the lobby if it's going to go to eighth graders. If it's going to eighth graders, it needs to go to eighth graders.
It sounds like we need to bring the policy back to talk about.
But that's a general donation. This is very specific.
Procedures for distribution of materials on school property.
Just a point, Dr. Moore, we could let our eighth grade principals know about it, and they could come in and get it quickly.
I have to be honest, if you just would have let me work with Jennifer or Kenny, everybody would have been happy.
But you had 2 years, Dr. Moore, 2 years that this has
No,
been going
absolutely.
on. Yes, it is. And you've already vetted the same material for 2 years.
The information is different. The time frame is different.
No, it isn't.
The length of time, yes, it is. The length of time in order to do it. But you all continue to do my job and let me know how it works out.
Okay, so I make a motion, the district, oh, I already made my motion. Should I repeat it?
Nope. Think we got it. Is there a second to her amended motion?
I'll second it.
I please like to have it repeated to make sure it's following policy.
I make a motion, the district distribute the 917 Society constitutional booklets to all eighth graders prior to September 11th, 2024.
It's breaking
Yes.
policy, that's right.
Go ahead, Doc.
Well, it just said that we distribute to the eighth graders, but that's not what our policy says. I mean, I think we can work with that policy to see how we get it to them, if it goes in the lobby. I'm not going to vote something against policy. I just think we can do it. If it goes in the lobby, then immediately know the principal, he or she can pick those up and get them to the eighth grade students. And we'd be following policy.
So I have a question for the superintendent. Are we getting into the weeds here? Can we just pass it and
Figure it out.
and you can follow the policy and figure out how to get it to the kids?
Yes.
I second that. Is that a motion?
That's a motion. All right.
I mean, I agree with it.
So what I'm asking is, I'm going to amend the amended motion. The amendment to the amendment is to withdraw the part about it has to go in the hands of every eighth grader, because that's violating our policy. Instead, follow policy, let the superintendent work with them to make sure that our kids get the books.
That would be a very demure outcome.
So that's my amendment to the amendment. So we have to vote, I'm asking for a second to the amendment to the amendment.
I second.
Okay, let me write it down, to amendment. Okay, because we have to go back and vote on all of them, I know. All right, so amendment to the amendment, we have a second, me, Berenborg, and Doc Jones. Good luck with this one, Ms. Murray. Okay, we have to vote on the amendment to the motion. Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed to the amended amendment to the motion?
Opposed.
It passes 4-1, so therefore we can go back to the amended motion and vote on that as amended by the amendment motion. All those in favor say aye.
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 Passes 5-0. Okay. And then on the other one, the original motion, as that motion as amended by the amended motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Passes 5-0. So that means we have accepted the amended amendment to the motion, which means, and I'm going to say that back, that the superintendent will work with you to make sure we follow board policy to get these out to kids. Okay. All right, that is our last action agenda item, and now we are to board member matters. Ms. Rosario?
Yeah, beginning of school went really well. I'm so incredibly pleased with all of the opening ceremonies and celebrations and multiple school visits. All of the children coming back, so cute. They're just so cute. So I'm so grateful that everyone worked so hard. Every school that I went to, I saw some district staff somewhere, somehow or another, and it was just wonderful. So I'm grateful for the opening. I know that with the opening, I will say, I have an issue with our CWA president speaking at the IRCEA, sorry. Our IRCEA president speaking the way that she did at the Thrive event. I will just say, I think that was completely inappropriate and uncalled for. I don't believe that, I've spoken with a lot of teachers who have said, she does not speak for me. So I thought it was very appropriate for me to mention that, because there's a time and a place for everything, and I think that was just not the time and a place. I don't know, Dr. Moore, if you want to talk on that, but.
You are correct.
Thank you. Thank you. It was just very inappropriate, as everyone was celebrating the successes of our school year. We disagree on many things. The board can agree to disagree on multiple items, but not one board member is hateful. Not one elected official here is hateful towards teachers. And so I just absolutely, completely disagree with that. I think that everybody is working extremely hard. I think that this year is going to be the year where all of our schools are going to be an A. Did you know that I was looking at you? Was going to be an A. And by the way, you didn't touch on the book kiosk or the book, oh my gosh, what is it?
The vending machine.
The vending machine. You didn't add, you needed to add more things to it. I shared with Dr. Moore book vending machines, which I thought were a fabulous idea. And then lo and behold, was it Citrus?
Beachland.
No.
That was
Beachland. Beachland has the book vending machine, which I just love. So I would love for all of our schools to be able to have that, where kids in the hallway would be able to get a book from the book vending machine. Like, how cool would that be? So I love that idea. I know you said that we're working on it, but what, Dr. Moore, does that actually mean by we are working on it?
Right now, that's exactly what that means. That is, that particular one was purchased by the PTA, and it's a fundraiser that they're implementing. So it's a proof of concept.
So some of them, I've seen some where they have like this card, kind of like a reward system, and the kids can use the card instead of actual money as credit, right? So they do good things, they gain, I don't know, academic success or whatever it is, and then they get this card. I don't know if that is possible, but I just wanted to throw that out there as well, because I know a lot of students will struggle financially, and I don't want to put kids in a position where I want a book, but I can't afford it. So I don't know how that would work. So I'm excited for what is to come, and thank you very much, Dr. Moore, for constantly providing the data on where we are. And again, I look forward to the best is yet to come.
Okay. Mr. McDonald?
Yes, I also appreciated and enjoyed the opportunity in the start of school to visit many of the schools, and was surprised to find out that we raised chickens and rabbits at our schools, but impressed by that as well. A very wide diversity of things in Indian River. But I enjoyed it and really excited and hopeful for the upcoming year, and I've already Dr. Moore with his #1 status in the state. And also in terms of my two committees, both of them did not meet in the last month, so I have nothing to report from them as well.
Okay, Dr. Jones.
I had the opportunity to visit all schools, all campuses the first week. I took about 4 days. They were wonderful. Saw a great change in the high schools with ID badge. Dress code looked better. Happy with that. Just a thank you to all of our teachers, administrators, support staff, district team, Dr. Moore, for getting us going on the right foot. Feel good about this. In the summers, I attended 2 school supply drives done by our community at Citrus and Dodgertown. Great support from the community, and our community partners were at the schools, so that was cool. Been to Dodgertown STEAM now 3 times. I'll probably go in a couple weeks. Miss Waller, Dr. Moore, is that furniture in yet? I haven't been in. Okay, got to get that furniture. Okay, they're waiting. Okay, so excited about that, and that where we're going to go with that. VBE went into a few orientations, and Dr. Moore, that hallway and the art and the paint, just fabulous, just fabulous. And they were done by local groups. I'm pretty sure I talked to 1 or 2 of them. It just looks great. When I was at the beginning year meeting at Vero Beach High School, I got into a couple of the breakouts with the new teachers, and that was with Terry Beckham and our coaches during the back-to-school event, and they were spot on with their development. Obviously, our fall athletics and activities have started. Thank you to our coach, band directors, choral directors, club sponsors for giving your time to our students. That makes a big difference. Thank you today, our board members, moving the proclamation forward on September 23rd for Dr. Hudson. I will get that information to Dr. Moore on following the policy that we need to do. He is a living legend, and I'm sure we'll get this finished. The CWA and IRCEA contracts, I know sometimes we just take those for granted, but I've been on negotiations before. I do not take them for granted. That give and take, and I think Ms. Christofoli said 57 language changes. One little word could take a day. So thank you very much. And thank you to our teachers union, our CWA support team for working with the district. Overall with, I think Dr. Moore said we're doing really well in the state. We still have a long way to go nationally to paying our teachers, but man, we want to keep these teachers, so we got to keep working on that. And I'll say more when I sworn in, but it's an honor and privilege to serve on this board, and I look forward to the next 4 years. Thank you.
All right, so, gosh, I did a lot of those things too, but the ones I wrote down, I'm gonna read. So I visited every campus, preschool up till last week, and, I got to see morning entrances at Vero Beach High School, very first day, kids walking through the metal detectors, and I don't know, we were, what, half hour behind for getting into school on time, and I know that it's gotten much improved, so that's great. I also went up to Sebastian River High School and saw the same thing. So I went to both high schools to watch, and they had it down, and it was really impressive to watch.
Day 3.
And all their IDs were on them.
Yeah,
I didn't
that's
see a kid without an ID. Oh, no, I take it back. We did see some, and they pulled them out. They had a great way of handling it. So that was great. And I saw a morning entrance at Fellsmere, and wow, he's got that down. All those parents know exactly. I drove the wrong way because I was driving down the street like I was going to go to the school, and I was definitely not in the right place I was supposed to be. So I found out real fast that that's not what you do in the morning. So I went to High Five at the Hive and Citrus, and that was great because it reminded me of what we did down in St. Lucie County, which is the Tunnel of Hope for every school, where you welcome the kids the first day of school, and they're so excited, and you're rah and the kids feel like rock stars, so it's awesome. Afternoon pickups, I saw Indian River Prep, they've got it down. Those buses not only hightail it from the high school to the Flick, they also whip by there as well and take those kids out. Oslo, I watched afternoon pickups a couple of times. The first week, but we're getting better and better, and I went back to visit again, and seems to be much better. I still have some concerns about the kids going through the park and stuff, so we'll work on that. And then Storm Grove, of course, not only did I get to see the afternoon pickup, but got to hold a sign and screen for the kids, so that was cool. Got to see teaching and learning on lots of campus walks, Vero Beach High School, Sebastian River Middle School. Man, that was really great. What I loved is people don't have a problem coming up and telling me about, and what my first concern when I walk on the campus is security. And they have no problem telling me, and I gotta tell you, when I told the superintendent about a couple of the concerns that I have, it got fixed immediately. And so I appreciate that, like the peephole in the back of the cafeteria door, so somebody can see when a vendor is coming to the back door. And that got changed immediately, so thank you for that. Sebastian Elementary, I was there when they were trying to do their first fire drill. That was cute. Pelican Island seems to be doing really well. They're excited about all the changes they've got ahead of them. Sebastian River High School went back to that and got to hold signs. Then Treasure Coast Elementary, very quiet there in Liberty on the second day of school, I think it was, and it was extremely quiet, which was really nice. Things were just purring right along. Gifford Middle School, got to visit there last week and saw the stuff that's going on with the STEAM and everything else, and that's purring. Got to see Beachland's new pre-K. Yes. And on their first day, I did go in there, Miss Flood, but I went in the afternoon, and they were sleeping. So it was really cute. And Rosewood, things are moving well, except for when I was there, they had all the temporary air conditioners going, and they were a little loud in the rooms. So I know that's a temporary, hopeful fix.
Temporary.
Okay. And then VBE, that entranceway is amazing. Oh, yeah. Amazing. Glendale, chickens. They're doing a great job there with their ag program. And then Osceola, things are purring there. I've been there a couple times. Had some safety concerns about some things and mentioned that to the superintendent, so hopefully we're on that about like one piece of equipment that kindergartners are consistently breaking things, like limbs. So we need to be careful with there. Dodgertown. Got to see Steam Park. I'm going back to Steam Park again, of course, because I got to. And then the Flick, I went preschool. We looked at, we actually had somebody come and do a TV article about the vape detector. So I'm curious how that's going. Indian River Academy, I went there because of a Facebook post. I went there pretty early on because somebody had posted on the Facebook post about the teacher's lounge and the disarray. And that wasn't acceptable to me. The superintendent, I called him on a Saturday night when I was in Miami. By Monday morning, when I met with the PTA president, there was somebody from the district office saying, we can fix this. So I appreciate that. And they did. I have a picture. So I have a before picture and after picture. It looks beautiful. Thank you. And then I went to Abaso during their code red drill. And they did a really, really great job. You would have been really proud of them. And they were on it. I happened to walk in right as they were beginning it, so I got to be in the building when that happened. Sign waving was a great idea. I'm hoping we do that again, not maybe in the heat.
Oh, yeah, a winter thing?
Yes. So maybe at the other schools, just to kind of remind them all year long that we're not excited that school started, and then we forget that we're excited about school. So that was great. I also attended the FSBA East Regional meeting in Orlando. I discussed 2 safety items I brought up to today's workshop. One is some Safe Schools for Alex. If you don't know what that is, please go on the website, safeschoolsforalex.org. It is started by a parent from Marjorie Stoneman Douglas that lost their child. And it just brings all this information and data together. And it had some other things on there too, like band lessons and things for kids, because he was a band student. Attended the cross-country parent meeting at Vero Beach High School because I needed to. And those parents were pretty hot under the collar about changes in their coaches, but I haven't heard anything since, so I'm thinking that that's going pretty well, but I can't wait to go to their first meet. It's this Saturday. We call it a meet still for cross-country, I'm not sure. So I'm hoping that that's going well. Sorry? It's going okay, good. And then I'm on the FSBA leadership for the state, and there's a formation of committees going on right now. So if you requested to be on a committee, you should be finding out this week. And zoning and planning. So I rushed back from the meeting in Orlando to get back to the zoning and planning meeting. And because of traffic in Orlando, I missed the meeting by 12 minutes. As I was walking up to the meeting, they were all walking out. They were done. I like their meetings. They're very short and sweet. And then Vero Beach High School's Media Center. Beautiful. Yeah. Except for we're still missing some stuff. You know what we're missing?
Shelves.
And?
Carrie? What?
There's a big item we're missing in there.
Wait a minute, I was there.
A lot of items, like thousands of them.
Oh, you mean?
The books.
Well, without the shelves.
So we need books back in the media center. And then congratulations on getting the contract signed. People don't realize other districts are in impasse. And if you don't know what that means, watch a district meeting that has impasse. It's ugly. I remember one of the first things I had to do when I was working on my master's for educational law was I had to go to an impasse meeting. And it was like an awakening. I never realized adults could speak like that because it just got ugly. And so we're very thankful that it's not ugly. It's going very smoothly. So I appreciate that. Thank you so much for everybody getting that done. Superintendent, closing.
Enjoy your evening.
Thank you. With that, we are closing the meeting at 9:54. We made it before 10.